Don't be afraid to admit it. You lot were scared that we were going to be gone for quite a while, which, to be fair, it was looking like it because busy lives postpone podcasts, ladies and gentlemen. But we are back, your favorite NFL podcast that has been sweeping the YouTube landscape for many, many days and many, many nights. At this point, we've done podcasts in the day, in the afternoon, in the evening, close to midnight at this point. The one thing this podcast has yet to accomplish is honestly doing a 24-hour live stream. That might be the end of us. So before we jump that proverbial shark, let's jump back into things for a new first episode of a new season for the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Of course, introing the affair per usual, the Iceman, myself, and my soliloquy. And as you can see, I'm not joined at this moment by two of my, well, technically one and a half. One of our compatriots of chaos, Justin, is away handling a little a job in the fields right now. He might return in this episode. He might not. We actually have no idea. We've sent Justin out for assignment. We'll see if he returns at some point in this episode. So there's the potential there, which of course means that for the first time in hashtag SAOC history, the Podfather is making an appearance in the debut episode of the season. And as you can tell with him being off screen, ladies and gentlemen, that means that there is something afoot. So Podfather, I shall waste no time. The floor belongs to you. Intro yourself, my good man. No! Is there more? Oh my god! That's two and a third. Wait, is there a third? Okay.
No, Sandoval's gone. Sandoval's long gone. Thank goodness. But yeah, I told you, foul wins and crazy things were at play to bring me back here for the very first episode of the new season, if you will. And yeah, that's what it was. So,
indeed. Do you want to educate the viewers real quick as why I lost my mind to two two puppets?
So, yes.
Which, by the way, new viewers, welcome. How did you stumble upon here? But welcome.
True. This is season 5, if you can believe that, of our podcast adventure. In the first 3 seasons for our pick challenge, we had a 4th cast member that was a random, I'll pull back the curtain a little bit, a random golf club driver head cover that we turned into a puppet. The first one was a deer, the second one was the pirate, and the third one was the a-hole gopher, we'll call him that. Last year was my kids, my daughter and my dog, and that was the year that Justin won. So, because obviously having mascots around, Justin, has his issues and problems with it. But now that they've entered the lexicon of the fold back again, it's clear that Justin is not going to repeat as champion this year. So I'm looking very much forward to reclaiming my title or having Jerry be the first ever 3-time champion. Or I've heard rumblings about a new cast member possibly making an appearance.
Oh.
So, yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Is it finally time? Is it finally time the Podwife is going to take the picks over?
No.
Yeah.
She's not. Listen, Podwife is extraordinarily happy with her football right now, and so we're just going to leave that as it is and move on from there. So, yeah.
Fair enough. But, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are ready to go. Obviously, quite a few weeks have passed since the Super Bowl, which, to be fair, it was kind of nothing for 3.5 weeks of it.
Yep.
So was there really anything worth talking? Even the franchise tag stuff that's so bored and overplayed because it's all right, we know what's going to happen. Whoever got a tag is probably going to end up signing some kind of deal whatsoever.
Yeah.
Or they're going to hold out for a year like Le'Veon Bell.
Well, yeah.
For the most part. So,
awesome.
So with that being said, as you can tell by the episode, there's a lot to talk about. We have a fun little tier list to bring up for you beautiful people on this one. But before we get to the tier list, before we get to that, of course, as tradition, we have some sort of game / mind molder. Maybe this should be the new word for it going forward. But basically, no games master tonight, Justin, in case he does join us later on. Obviously, we'll have an impromptu game, of course.
That is true.
Obviously, we'll just put him right on the spot, per usual. But
Love it.
but while we wait for that, and just before we hit the tier list, the Podfather has shared with me that we have an interesting edition of a game that we debuted relatively late into last season of Keep 4 Cut 4, but this time it's a Keep 5 Cut 5.
Yep.
So, Podfather, what is the topic? Originally, now it just said draft a moment ago. We don't know if it's draft. The monkeys in the graphics trucker may have to fix that. But what do we got for this Keep 5, Cut 5 topic edition?
Listen, don't tempt me. There might be a monkey joining us for the entire season at this point. You never know. So I thought about this because I thought to myself, we're coming up to the draft. It's in about a little less than a month, and we obviously have our mock draft coming up.
Yep.
And
the traditional 3-round mock, by the way.
Indeed. And we know what the first pick is going to be this year. We know who it's going to be and where he's going to go and everything. I did happen to see a compilation video come through the X sphere, if you will, of the top 10 most recent NFL draft picks that were number 1. But I'm not going to do that because I think that's a pretty easy one. And truth be told, this one might be pretty easy too, but I want to see if maybe your opinion swayed a little bit on a few of them. So tonight's Keep 5, Cut 5 is the 10 most recent number 1 picks in the NFL draft, quarterback edition.
Ooh.
So, yes. So it's an interesting one. I feel like I know where you're gonna go with a couple of these. But there's some interesting conjecture that I think you can bring forward into the mixture here. It's gonna actually, believe it or not, it's gonna take us back about 14 years for the oldest one, and obviously last year for the most recent one. I know.
Right.
So, if you're ready, I'm gonna start off with, as my first Keep 5, Cut 5 entry, the quarterback who was taken number 1 overall in the 2019 NFL draft by the Arizona Cardinals, now the QB1 of the Minnesota Vikings, Kyler Jafarius Murray.
Oh, Kyler. It's tough because he had a few moments in Arizona, and there are just a couple things, man, that it could have gone better for him there, and it could have been a completely different story. I remember this in part just because it's when I also moved. So it's when key points in your life happen, you sort of internalize things a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
But when I moved from New York, specifically NYC, that was the 2021 season where we were finally getting that breakout Kyler Murray campaign, right? It was the best he'd ever played in his career. The Cardinals looked like they were competing, truthfully, to try to win the NFC West. And then a late season Monday Night Football game against the Rams kind of really derailed things. They were relatively comfortable. I think it was the only time they ever hit double-digit wins since he got there, and the only double-digit win season of Cliff Kingsbury's career, which still showed a second half of the season collapse, as I was one to point out early in our podcasting days. And then it just completely faltered out in the one-and-done wild card appearance. It was against the Rams once again, and once again they absolutely cooked them. It's so tough because, truthfully, if we were, it's hard to remember all 10 of these guys. But because it is first overall pick, so we're eliminating Lamar, Allen, and Mahomes, right?
Yes.
New fans will be shocked. The best quarterback in the league doesn't always go first overall.
That's true.
In terms of just pure talent of the top of these last 10 guys that you're going to give me, there's an argument to be made. And I do want to make the argument that talent-wise, Kyler has a discussion to be kept because of the dynamic ability that is needed in the league nowadays. Does he have the best arm? Strongest? No. But in terms of he's shown accuracy, he can hit a couple plays when necessary, and he can, best case, at least maneuver in the pocket to extend the play. And truthfully, at the end of his Cardinals career, there was something really weird happening where, for whatever reason, Cliff Kingsbury, or I still think it's him, no, but Gannon and the offensive staff just weren't using his running ability enough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's a combination of, was he not sure because he has had some lower leg injuries in the last couple of years in Arizona? Is it that it just they weren't scheming for it, which is a really big indictment if that was the case? I think he has a good shot at being inbound for a bounce back season here. We'll get to that in a couple of moments. If this was a year from now, Rick, I might give it a keep, but with the body of work, it's tough. I'm going to have to cut Kyler here. I'm going to have to cut him.
Okay. Cutting him like Call of Duty, cutting him as a sponsor. I understand that for sure. All right. That one I thought I was going to be on the fence with a little bit. I wasn't quite sure where you were going to go, but I thought maybe you'd work on that one. Let's move on to somebody who is the bane of my existence. The number one overall pick from the 2023 NFL Draft from the University of Quarterbacks That Fail at Life, aka Alabama.
Oh, come on.
Drafted by the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Squirks Young.
I don't think I need to be too wax poetic on this one like I was with Kyler. Bryce Young has shown us a few things here and there. He's had his moments. He was a couple throws away from making us eat crow on the podcast with that playoff game against the Rams.
It's true.
But he had, let's just be real, he has not done it for a full NFL season. And if I'm cutting Kyler, because Kyler had at minimum one season where he looked like a top 10 quarterback in the league, I'm not going to keep a guy who's maybe had – has he even had 5 games where he's looked like a top 10 quarterback on something?
No,
probably not.
No, that's why you don't draft him number one.
Yeah. Well, we know one of the reasons why you did it. But, to be fair, when we did that mock, and please, ladies and gentlemen, kind of doing this for views, but also, go back to the mocks that we've done, right? Yeah. We do 3-round mocks, and we talk about this stuff. They're long freaking streams, so you get plenty of content there. We, as a collective, I think all 3 of us, no matter who had the first overall pick in that draft, all 3 of us were going CJ Stroud. Now, to be fair, things haven't been fresh meadow with him ever since his rookie season ended. But at the time, our logic, despite what we know, which, we know a couple things on the show.
We know a few things.
So I'm cutting Bryce here as well. Because here's the thing, I have a decent memory of stuff. Now, I've had to sacrifice a lot of things to remember every single driver's champion of all time and a majority of the constructors champions. I relatively remember most of the top 10, a good amount of the last 10 quarterbacks. So there's a couple easy keeps in my head, and Bryce and Kyler, I'm not losing sleep with cutting them.
Okay. I respect that. So I had a feeling that was going to be an easy cut. I knew that for sure. Now I want to see if I can give you an easy keep. And I think I know exactly where I'm going to go with this. 3-time Pro Bowler, 1-time Super Bowl runner-up.
Okay, now I know
the number 1 overall pick of the 2020 NFL Draft, the weird NFL Draft.
Yeah.
From Louisiana State University. I'm not even going to ask you, because I know what we're going to say, but I'm going to let you wax a little bit about this. Mr. Joseph Burrow.
The modern day Joe Cool.
Yes.
To the day that I stopped podcasting, which sooner than later, who knows? But I genuinely believe that Joe Burrow, when you combine talent, on-field ability, IQ, the ability to read and pick apart a defense, to do great things with an offense, I believe he's the second best quarterback in this league behind Patrick Mahomes. And I'm going to continue to say that until forever, basically, even the day he retires, which the Bengals are trying to make it sooner rather than later on that end. I believe he is the second best quarterback in this league. I feel he was robbed of an MVP last year. Well, not 2 years ago. Technically past last season.
I was going to say Stafford dominated this.
Yeah, right. I believe he was robbed of an MVP award 2 seasons ago. And I just genuinely believe that this guy is a all-time talent that the Bengals are going to criminally waste. And what have I said about McDavid and the Oilers in the NHL? My first non-NFL reference here. Yes. I have said that if McDavid finishes his Edmonton career with 0 cups, that everyone who had ever had a front office job in Edmonton should be put in jail and or hung, drawn, and quartered. One or the other. Yep. I'm not picky. I feel the same way about Cincinnati. He's proven himself. This is a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Yep.
You can't question that because they were actually a throwaway.
Yeah.
He's the talent. Literally, I think and now I hold him as the second best quarterback in the league. Do other teams? Probably not. What, maybe 3-4 teams in the league wouldn't take him over their current guy?
Maybe.
Come on, this is the easiest keep on the list. It might be. No. It might be. There's a couple names, but
if you know your history of quarterbacks that were drafted number 1 in the last 10, you probably would consider it. Now, I think it's very interesting that you say this is the easiest keep on the list. I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm actually going to go to the oldest quarterback on this list because I think this is going to be a very interesting telltale sign of where we're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
This is from a 3-time Pro Bowler to a 4-time Pro Bowler.
Hmm.
And somebody who is no longer in the league.
Okay. There's two names that come to mind. I'm trying to remember which one, what year they were drafted.
The source of and the inspiration for the wonderful Twitter account of Civil War musings from the general himself.
Yes.
The 2012 number 1 draft pick from Stanford University, Stanford,
There we go.
of the Indianapolis Colts, Mr. Colonel Andrew Sanders Luck.
Kids, let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
About a number 1 overall pick that was going to be generational.
He was.
He was going to win an MVP. He was going to bring the Indianapolis Colts back to the promised land.
Yes, he was.
And Ryan Grigson and that front office did not only destroy his body,
yep,
but they destroyed his love of football.
Yep.
Aside from Burrow, no, because I know Cam came in the league before Luck. So if Luck is the cutoff point, that I don't need to worry about Cam, because Cam would have been one of the keeps.
Yes.
Andrew Luck is a keep as well. Like there is no the if about Andrew Luck is not about how good he was. The if is if he had been allowed to play longer.
Right.
Because with everything happening, with when he came into the league and the evolution of the quarterback play to what it is now, imagine the scary reality where Andrew Luck could have completed 75% of his, or 7. Well, I mean, no, maybe he would have gotten 75. Let's say 68 to 71% completion percentage in the season. He was already putting up 4,000 yards and had 40 touchdown seasons, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he was.
Like, it frustrates me so much when we get robbed of actual generational Hall of Fame talent.
Yeah. It is a shame, too, that we had such a good AFC at the time because you still had in their prime Brady.
Yep.
In their prime Roethlisberger.
Yep.
Towards the end of his prime, but still could play Manning.
Yep.
And coming into his prime, Andrew Luck.
And you know, like when they made the one AFC championship game, they beat the Broncos that year. Like that was because I believe that was the last year before when Peyton and them came back, but that was like he was on the definition of a last leg is what Peyton Manning was on. Like
I agree.
It is absolutely crazy to think that, and no matter what the Patriots were going to win that game, but like we had a somewhat passing of the torch in terms of like Peyton and Andrew Luck on the last playoff game where Peyton Manning was Peyton Manning. Andrew Luck beat him. Let's call a spade a spade. Andrew Luck and the Colts beat the Peyton Manning Broncos, which the year before they made the Super Bowl. So the fact that like he was ascending. Andrew Luck was ascending, and that was taken from us. I will never forgive Ryan Grigson, and if I was commissioner of the NFL, I would have banned that man from ever having a front office job with an organization ever again. Yep. Put him in the PR department, put him in ticketing, I don't care. But never should he be allowed to make a choice on picking players because he ruined the career of what could have been a top 15, top 20 quarterback of all time. It disgusts me to this day.
Yeah. So Andrew Luck is absolutely a keep.
Absolutely. Now I'm confident saying him and Burrow are the locks. No matter what they were keeps.
To be fair, I think that if Andrew Luck was still able to play and came back this season, he would still probably be the starting quarterback for at least half of the teams in the league this year, because that's just how good he was. And then we go from the oldest quarterback on this list to the most recent quarterback on this list, the man who never stood a chance, the man who in our mock draft fell to the 20s, I believe. And to be honest, for pretty good reason. Tennessee Titans, number 1 overall draft pick from the University of Miami, Florida, the U, Candace Cameron Ward.
I won't be too long here. Most recent, smallest body of work, small sample size. I still think Cam Ward could be pretty good. Mm-hmm. I just don't think we've seen enough at this point. The bad, unfortunately, outweighs the good. I think the flashes of the good are there to where in 2 years' time, it wouldn't surprise me if we're talking about him in a much higher light.
Yep.
Even in a year time, potentially, but I'll give it to. But no, just for right now, Again, the smallest sample size. And if I'm going to bank on a recently drafted first overall pick quarterback with the potential, it's not going to be him. It's going to be his predecessor from the previous draft who did show us a little something this year. So it's not Cam Ward has to be a cut.
So, all right, so we've gone through 5 of them. We have 3 cuts and 2 keeps. I'm going to try and give you a third one that I believe would be a keep. Knowing our conversations and knowing our podcast history and all of that, because I want to save the last 4 in my head for what I think is going to be a very interesting discussion here. So, and then again, this is your list, not mine. So I know how I would feel, but I want to see how you feel. We're going to go with a 2-time Pro Bowler, a journeyman quarterback who's bounced around quite a bit and seems to have found his spot in Florida on a pirate ship.
Okay.
2018's number 1 overall pick from Oklahoma, Baker Reagan Mayfield.
I love you're pulling out the government names for this.
Yes.
We need to bring back that TikTok trend from saying full government names to them. We need to bring that for all sports. It'd be funny.
Yes.
Mainly for NHL, the international guys, it would just be peak. They would need to find an intern that knows how to say those names.
Yeah.
For some of them. No, I mean, I agree. Baker, whether it's my list or someone else's, I would say of the last 10 first overall pick quarterbacks, Baker is a keep. In a different world, he would actually still be a Cleveland Brown. Now, is that a good or a bad thing for him is a different tale to tell. Yep. But ultimately, the thing with Baker is that he's had stretches of extremely good play. He led the Browns to the playoffs. He led them to a playoff win. And I think it's both a blessing and a curse for him because of how talented he's been in his first couple of years in Tampa. He's helped Todd Bowles keep his job longer than he probably deserves to, just because they've done the bare minimum in a couple of those seasons. But no, Baker's great. He's there's still some drawbacks to his game, and I think when we really saw everything go to hell in a handbasket this year, too many holes in the old pirate ship. At the same time, though, they lost everything. Yep. Evans gone so long, Chris Godwin gone so long, guys on the defense hurt. Egbuka, he was very inconsistent in his rookie season. There's a reason. I believe Ted McMillan ended up winning the offensive rookie of the year, right?
Yes, he did.
For good reason.
Yes.
Egbuka had flashes, but those flashes, they dimmed real quick, didn't they? He really wasn't in he was not consistent in the back half of the season. That could change this year. He might be the number 1 option, all things considered. But no, I think Baker really showed himself. The fact I will keep him just off the fact that the Cleveland Browns said they needed to bring an adult in the room, and their idea of it was he who shall not be named, and they thought that Baker wasn't more adult than that guy, and Baker has shown it that they made a mistake, and now could potentially show Kevin Stefanski that 2 times a season. So,
I agree.
Baker's a keep for me.
Well, we go from an adult in the room being needed to one of the final 4, and a really interesting person to speak about here.
This is going to be interesting.
on-field football and also off-field what's the word? Intangibles. Thank you.
Okay.
A 1-time Pro Bowler.
Okay.
Another quarterback who has bounced around a bit.
Okay.
Currently somebody who's tutoring a high draft pick. The 2015 number 1 overall draft pick from Florida State University. Famous Jameis Jack Theratrix Winston.
Worth noting, actually in my reels earlier, it was I forget the comedian off the top of my head, but he was doing a bit about Johnny Manziel. I guess this was from a year or 2 ago when the whole Johnny Manziel doc thing came out.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that Johnny Manziel is the only redshirt freshman to ever win the Heisman, and that is false, ladies and gentlemen, because famous Jameis literally did that the next year. So
yes, he did.
Never be afraid to tell the comedians when they don't know their sports stuff.
Exactly.
Look for the culture for this podcast.
This is a tough one, though. This is a real tough one if you think about it.
So I know 2 of the last 3 on the list.
Okay.
My mind is blanking on who the 5th one could be.
Oh boy.
So or 5th one, 4th one. So I basically need to ask myself, do I go for the memes? Because here's the thing, I'm all about the memes.
Yep.
do I go for the memes and keep Jameis and risk the fact that I'm actually cutting an actually really good quarterback, or do I just say "F it, we ball," or like do I make that cut, or do I just end up saying "F it, we ball" here? Like, look, all due respect to some of these young guys, they're gonna be telling tales about Jameis Winston.
Yes, they are.
Some of these guys wish they could have a 30 for 30 season.
Yes, they will.
The literal ESPN 30 for 30 presents 30 and 30.
Yes.
There's the Jameis Winston story right there.
Done.
You talk about off the field intangibles. I cannot wait for him to be hired when his career is over. And here's the thing: he could do so many different things. He could be part of your organization as a liaison. He could be like a guy you put in like an actual role of like talking to the people, kind of like what Magic Johnson does for teams, right? Let's be real. Magic Johnson hasn't made any like good basketball or any sport decisions in like 20 years. So he just keeps winning championships just by being in ownerships. Like, but he's got the nice smile. People love talking to him. That's Jameis. Like people love him. You know what? F it, we ball. I'm keeping Jameis.
All right then.
I'm keeping Jameis.
All right then. I was gonna say I can also see him. I don't know if you remember. You might be too young, but I don't know if you remember the Tony Siragusa. What his role was when he was a sideline guy with Daryl Johnson when he was on Fox. He was like the sideline reporter. He was the big guy. Jameis is a sideline reporter.
100%.
Oh my god, yeah. Or Jameson and what Dion was back when he was on the NFL Today or anything like that. Like, that's the guy that you need. All right.
He'd be money for a show.
So I'm kind of glad that you went that way, because now it's going to make my final two really dicey for you.
I was going to say, so I have 4 keeps and 3 cuts. So
correct.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you probably a layup of a cut, although, after the season that he had last year, maybe not so much. If we revisit this in like 5 or 6 years, maybe, it's good. I'll be very angry about it considering where he went to college, but, it is what it is. This is the man who's currently trying to steal the nickname from the George Gervin, household, and don't do that, kid.
Yeah.
From USC, 2024's number 1 overall pick, Caleb Paint Your Nails, fingernails, Williams.
The top 3 Icemen in sports history are George Gervin.
Yep.
Kimi Räikkönen.
Yes.
And myself.
And may I also add that the top 1 Iceman in all of pop culture is Val Kilmer from Top Gun.
Exactly. So that more than anything else is why I'm going to cut Caleb.
Yeah.
No, like truthfully, like to your point, legitimately, if you bring this back in like 2 years, and we should first off, amazing if we're still doing this in 2 years, but like we could have Justin do it because what are the odds he actually watches this back?
We'll see.
Like no, Caleb's good. He did show a lot of growth last year, but it does beg the question. There were a lot of second half and fourth quarter things that had to happen last year for the Bears. Like, what have I said in the past with teams like that? I don't trust year-to-year teams that win in unsustainable ways. The Bears had to do a lot of magic in the back half of games in order to win a lot of their games. That's not sustainable. And look, did Caleb perform really good in some of those back halves? Absolutely, he did. I need more full 60-minute games from him, though. Like that I feel like I'm being consistent in my keeps and cuts, where who I've kept has played at an extremely high level for multiple seasons for the most part and played like a top tier quarterback in this league. Caleb at times looked like a top, fringe top 10 quarterback last year. Yeah. And at times he looked like the guy where it's like solid, but. And look at my 4 keeps. I have, again, to me, top 2 quarterback in this league. To a lot of people, he's at worst 4th or 5th. So top 4, top 5 quarterback consensus in this league right now. I have Andrew Luck, who would have been a Hall of Famer for sure. I have Baker, who I think is, it's tough back half of the year, but I think he's very comfortable, like top 9, top 10 quarterback still in this league. I do think so. And then the most entertaining quarterback that this league has seen in the last decade or so. Caleb Williams is none of those guys.
And so that's kind of where now I'm leaning towards a very interesting discussion, because when we do our quarterback rankings, as we have done in years past, it always seems like these 2 guys are kind of somewhere in that fringe where we're in arguments about them.
They're the Mendoza line of top half of the league quarterback.
Pun not intended, by the way, because
Right.
Fernando's going to be number one this year. You obviously know the two that I'm talking about, I assume, right?
Yeah. Now that you mentioned two, it's like, oh wait, no, I know, because one was immediately in my brain, but the other
Yep.
one you just clocked
Okay.
for me.
So this is the question then: do you go for the guy who had the incredible college career and has played okay in pro, but is still revered as a very high quarterback? Or do you go for the guy that that I stamp my claim to as one of the best quarterbacks in the league,
Yeah.
even though there's a lot of conjecture about that? So let's go with my guy. Let's go with the 2016 number one overall pick, the second most famous quarterback from the University of California, with the band not being on the field, a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 1-time Super Bowl contestant who didn't throw a touchdown in the game because he only scored 3 points, Jared Gardenhoser Goff.
Is that actually his middle name?
I wish.
That's a very interesting conversation, because now, since I already because I remember who the last guy is, so now it's kind of easy for me to know that. So I have a standard to compare the two of them to, which is what I always try. This is one of those where it's worked my way with my memory. Now, if you'd given me 10 quarterbacks between the 80s and mid 2000s, that would have been tough to remember some of those topics.
Yeah.
Which could be a fun one in the future.
I agree.
Both of these guys I've gone back and forth with a lot.
Which also is kind of why I'm happy you put Jameis in your keys, because that made it a lot easier for me to do this.
I had to do it for the culture.
Yeah, why not?
So for me, it's one of two.
It's you know what it is? It's Ryan Gosling or it's Sunshine Ronnie Bass.
That's a good one. That's actually a pretty good one.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, I want to try to be consistent, as I always am, right? With that little bit of room for what's the what if. The only thing of pause is that I do feel, from a base raw talent perspective, I think Trevor Lawrence is better than Jared Goff.
Okay.
From that level. From a base raw talent perspective, I do think Trevor Lawrence is the more naturally talented player. I think this past season was tough on Goff's perception. I know there's an argument to be made, of course, that things just really were not going Detroit's way, right? Things didn't crash in Detroit that bad since the automotive industry years back. But anyways, yeah, tough. It's still too soon. But in actuality,
Dearborn.
while it was tough, and while he does have some stuff to answer to, and I think a couple things to prove, just from an NFL perspective, again, I've been going with consistency and showing things for longer stretches of time with my keep 4, cut 4, or in this case, keep 5, cut 5. I'm going to lean on that for my decision-making process here. I do think this is a massive year for Trevor Lawrence. This is a supremely massive year, because you're number 2 with Liam Cohen. Duval, got to get the joke in there. You're number 2 with him. The roster's looking very interesting right now, right? They lost a couple pieces in free agency. They're trying to build that thing back up.
Yep.
Trevor Lawrence has a lot of things to prove. If we're doing this again a year from now, maybe he makes it into the keeps.
Maybe.
But right now, he just has to barely be a cut. If we were doing this like a proper 1 through 10 and what's the cutoff point, very much like he is in his career in the current conversations, I think Lawrence and Williams are like that. Not to make the joke unintentionally, they're 6 and 7 compared to the other 3 guys that we're cutting here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the others are above them. And I think in this case, it's keep Goff, cut T-Law. A year from now, we might have a different conversation here. Then again, a year from now, it'd be taking Andrew Luck out of this. So, there's...
Well, I mean...
But ultimately, I think in this case, I would keep Goff and I would cut Trevor Lawrence.
Okay. Listen, I knowing what I know and knowing from how you picked, I figured that was going to be an interesting battle of conjecture, an interesting discussion. So your keeps then are Joe Cool,
Yep.
Sergeant General Andrew,
Absolutely.
Bounce Back Baker,
Yep.
Famous Jameis,
Yep.
and Turn It Off Goff. And your cuts are Call of Duty Kyler, Big Boy Bryce. I say that with all that time. Cam Ward, who's Who? Caleb and T-Law, who needs God.
Yeah.
And Liam Cohen.
I think ultimately that's like a pretty. I think that's the most fair way. I could see people arguing for either Kyler, T-Law, or Caleb to be up there above of Goff, but I just think right now, from this perspective, I think Jared Goff deserves to be in those 5 keeps right now.
All right, listen, I respect it. I knew there was going to be, like I said, I got what I wanted at the end, where it was at least a conjecture at the end of it, but I don't think anyone would complain about those picks. Maybe if you switched out Trevor Lawrence and Jameis Winston, I think you could have an argument in that aspect of it. But I mean, if you're gonna put Jameis in there because of just the overall good times you're gonna have with him as your quarterback, I agree with it. So, well done by you, sir.
Well, thank you. I think because this is one where kind of like the memory was there. I'm like, I was kind of confident in it. Like, I think, not to say anything is like, at the end of the day, it is subjective. And like people say, like, I'm talking between Goff and Lawrence, but like realistically, I know a lot of people would be like, why are you keeping Jameis Winston? But once again, for the memes, for the culture.
Yep.
Hey, I'll confidently say this. There ain't a single quarterback on that list that will give you a 75-yard bomb on one play touchdown, and the next play they're going to throw a pick 6 the other way. And another guy that can do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, whether that's a good or bad thing is up for conjecture.
Well, again, what does that mean at the end of the day?
Exactly.
So,
but fantastic keep 5 cut 5 right there.
Thank you.
I genuinely cannot wait. Like when because once we get through this episode, maybe we'll probably end up talking a little bit more free agency in the next episode as well. Maybe like kind of like the leftovers of it. And then once we head towards the draft, like post draft, we're gonna have a couple episodes where it's just gonna be talking about fun in games, and like we could do a whole episode of just keep 4 cut 4s and stuff like that.
We could do that. We could absolutely do that. Yeah,
we could have some fun summer episodes this summer, which we'll probably need, considering I'm taking not 1 but 2 trips.
Well, yeah, evergreens are a beautiful thing.
Indeed, they are, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
and access to the account in order to have multiple people access to both also helps.
Yes, that's also accurate too.
But good stuff right there. Podfather, keep 5 cut 5 is done. Very fantastic work right there.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the meat and potatoes, as a good old friend of mine would say to the program. Drop off 25 cents off to the, this was 3 months ago, to the semi-newlywed bars. Shout out to him. Shout out to him.
Yeah, a lot has happened since we've been on the show. People got married.
Well, to be fair, he was married when the regular season was still going.
Well, I mean, that is true, but it feels like he's still involved in that. He beat my cut time for how long I thought that was going to be. But
I'll say the next time we get.
Yeah, I figured one day she'd wake up and say, "I'm Mrs. Bars. I don't want to be that. What is this sort of thing?"
I was say the next time we get Bars on here, like we should honestly, maybe post draft with some fun with that. Maybe for like some of the fun and games episodes, we gotta get Bars on here. We could just do like a whole 55-minute TED talk with you and him just talking about married life at that point.
Oh yeah. I'm sure I would love to hear that. Highest rated episode of all time. Oh,
you know what? It might.
It might be.
It might end up being our highest rated.
You're not wrong about that. Yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen, as we move on from then, future episode planning on air, because we're just so nice like that, let's go on to the main portion of the show, which is the NFL free agency analysis and ranking portion of the program. So, as you could tell, to an extent, there is going to be some ranking in this one, because we have a tier list. We're bringing back a tier list. First one in a little bit that we're having here on the show.
Yeah,
going to be a good one. We have all 32 NFL teams right here. All their logos are here.
Ooh.
And here are the 8 tiers. I can't read.
Wow.
Here are the 8 tiers that we have for this tier list. We're going to be keeping this relatively simple, for as simple as you can have when it's
please
all 32 teams. We're going to do this pretty quickly. We're going to go division by division in division order. I have the order. I'll just run through one at a time of what we're going to be viewing, and we're going to be sorting teams in one of these 8 ranks, which is free agency banner raiser, which for all intents and purposes you could also consider like your offseason winner. Great moves, simple as that, just great moves that this team made during the offseason. You improved, which is it's teetering, maybe a move or two we might, but like overall you improved your roster.
Yes,
you did things, which is something. Did you even try? It's fair. PF Chang's customers for life. There's at least one team that's going to be in that section.
Oh, yeah.
Not Miami, but is that really saying much?
True.
And then the Dolphins.
Dolphins.
Which, I was gonna start with one of the two teams from this division that actually made the postseason last year. But Rick, do we just want to put them out of their misery right now and just put the Dolphins here?
Yeah, you might as well do that. And the reasoning is because of the fact that if you look at the overall scope of who the Dolphins brought in versus who they shipped to the side, who they kicked out of SeaWorld, if you will, it kind of just begs the question of what exactly were you thinking? Now, the one thing that they've done correctly, I think, for my money, is that they have shut down the trade rumors of Devon Achane, but this is a Miami Dolphins team that is looking like they are going to be that back to that 1-15 mold that they were a couple of years ago. Because who do you have? Who do you not? Who do you have on this roster that's going to convince me that you're going to be a dominant offensive force here? In replacing Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, they brought in Jalen Tolbert and Tutu Atwell. That's like having a banner Disney movie that goes straight to number 1 in the box office, and then replacing the voice actors for the straight-to-video home release sequel. It's like, what was it? Oh, God, please help me here. There's a good one that I have in my head here I'm thinking of. You know what it is? It's taking Cars with Owen Wilson and then making Planes with Dane Cook. Like,
a Dane Cook reference in 2026.
Exactly. That's how bad things are. And I mean, listen, did they make a couple of other fine moves? Sure. I mean, adding David Ojabo and Josh Uche, the linebacking core, is fine and dandy and all, but the sum of the parts doesn't equate to the moves that they made and the people that they lost. So, yeah, the Dolphins are just terrible.
I would say, which, as you can tell by the title, ladies and gentlemen, we'll probably even just discuss this next week when we maybe react to certain moves more in full. They cut Tua. Tua is. I
didn't even talk about the fact that their QB1 is Malik Willis.
Yes,
they're
the team that paid Malik Willis after 5 good career games.
$67.5 million over 3 years from Malik Willis, and not only that, by the way, not only do they not have Quinn Ewers as their only backup option, they signed off of the Raiders practice squad Cam Miller from North Dakota State, because the last time a North Dakota State quarterback got into the league was really good, right, Trey Lance? Ugh. Why, Miami? What are you doing?
Is there a North Dakota State quarterback in this upcoming draft class too?
Yeah, but I think he's going to be lower, maybe mid-second, third round.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Justin pick him just because it'll be funny.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Spoiler alert, there's only really one quarterback that should be going first round in this class.
I mean, obviously, yes.
But we know there will be 2 because of the NFL.
Correct.
Just listen to these because names that have left the Dolphins in this offseason.
Yep.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Of course.
Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Jalen Waddle.
Yep.
Jalen Ramsey.
Yes.
Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yep.
Bradley Chubb.
Yes.
Teron Armstead, who retired, which honestly is the smartest decision he may have made.
One of the best decisions he could have made.
James Daniels.
Yep.
Zach Wilson.
Yep.
Alec Ingold.
Uh-huh.
Jonnu Smith, funny enough.
Oh.
Nick Westbrook-Akine.
Yes.
Matt Judon.
Yes.
And Jason Sanders.
Not to mention, also...
Now, on this list, by the way, are also their dead cap hits. What is it? With Tua, it's the dead cap hit. It's the single season record, which has supplanted Russell Wilson, which is saying a lot. And then, I think they have the most, team total dead cap hit in the history of the league.
Oh, yeah.
If this team gets a single win in 2026, I'll be impressed. Whoever between the 3 of us picks them for a 4-point upset and nails that selection, job well done to the future version of one of us that does that.
I was going to say, not to mention also the fact that they've replaced their entire special teams unit. Because Jake Bailey is gone, so is Jason Sanders, but even Joe Cardona, their long snapper, is gone. So you've got a brand new group over there, including Zane Gonzalez, Riley Patterson. It's not going to be a good year for this Miami team. And, it's just more of the same for them. It's more of this idea that the guys that you lose, you're supplanting them with bodies, but you're not actually replacing these guys. What are you going to tell me that that Storm Duck is going to be your number 1 quarterback? Replacing Rasul Douglas? Come on, I don't think so. So that's why the Dolphins are where they are, people.
Indeed.
Yep.
Indeed. All right, let's continue in this division, and we can only go up from here, technically speaking, or can we?
Can we?
Well, this is the thing. Rick, the New York Jets.
Oh boy.
So notable moves. They traded for the prodigal son, Geno Smith.
Yes.
They got him in a trade with the Raiders. They got him in a 7th in exchange for a 6th-round pick.
They did do that.
They franchise tagged Brees Hall, poor guy.
Well,
they kept Jelani Woods in the tight end room. They signed Dylan Parham, who I think was actually like solid. Max Mitchell re-signed with him. That's a guy from one of our drafts in previous years.
yeah.
They brought in Joseph Asai, former Cincinnati Bengal. David Onyemata as a 1-year stopgap. They made a trade. They traded Jermaine Johnson for Devondre Sweat. They brought in Demario Davis to kind of be that veteran on things. Nashawn Wright, who had a great 1 year with the Bears, right? Like, I'm shocked he didn't get a bigger deal. Like, he could end up being a pretty good value signing, all things considered, for the Jets. And he'll ultimately leave after the season with the Jets.
Yeah.
And then, I mentioned Mika Fitzpatrick before. He was the one that the Jets were the team that acquired him from the Dolphins, and then they Cade York. So, like, the Jets, like, to an extent, you can see a lot of logic in their move. Should we just put them in you did things, or do you want to say you improved? Like, where would you write their offseason?
I mean, my biggest thing with them is that not only did you let a guy who you tried to homegrown talent him, you let Elijah Vera Tucker walk. You let him walk to the Patriots of all teams. So, like, I get the idea that they retooled that offensive line with Kingsley Enagbare and Osai and Onyemata. Fine moves and all, but I look at the offense and I look at what they did, and to me, the Jets are two-tiered. They did things on defense, but did they even try on offense? They didn't add a secondary option to Garrett Wilson as a wide receiver. I mean, A.D. Mitchell's fine and dandy and all, but you could have added somebody else. Franchise tagging Brees Hall was your only real option, but it doesn't feel like a stunning move there. It doesn't feel like a page turner move. And I think the only reason why I'm going to move them into the you did things is because in all the trades that they made, they didn't give up the house.
Right.
Geno was for a 2026 6th-round selection. Minka was for a 2026 7th-round selection. The only trade that I questioned was the Jermaine Johnson trade. I think they lost that trade personally. I do get, obviously they had to go out and then sign everybody, which is fine and dandy and all, but I would much rather have kept Jermaine Johnson than added another run stuffer, Devondre Sweat. Maybe he'll be good. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I say they did things because in not really adding much to the offense for me, the only good thing I can say, like I said, they didn't give up the house to do it. So I feel like that is a good move by Darren Muji and this Jets front office to not give up the house, but it wasn't exactly exciting. It wasn't exactly the moves that we'll talk about a little bit later with their co-tenants.
Right.
So that's why I put them in the you did things plan. I don't know. Were you settling on? I know you were saying that you improved or you did things. So
yeah, I think you did things is fair because like I think there were guys brought in. First off, Tank Commander Geno Smith could end up if he could get the Jets a first overall pick. Maybe that'll be 3 Ring of Honors he gets into one day. But like him, you bring some veterans there. I think like Demario Davis at first kind of like was a head scratcher, but I look at him and Minka and Onyemata like. I think for this Jets team that's going to be bringing in more young talent this year and like just the rough year defensively they had last year, I think bringing in those high character guys, like, look, you got to give the Jets credit. If you can't bring in talent, at least bring in guys that aren't going to cause you headaches in the locker room, right? And you're bringing in 3 veterans who have all had various levels of success in their career. Demario Davis started as a Jet, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So
yes, I believe he did. Yeah,
for both him and Geno. Funny sentence to say, but like this could be like, the swan song of their careers is finishing out with the organization that brought them in the league and helping usher in the next generation. Now, the success of that next generation is TBD. Well, but like, I think there's positives to take from it. So that's why I'm fine with you did things because to be fair, they did do some things, right? Like there are some other teams where did you even try is more apropos for them. I think the Jets tried you can question the quality of some of the picks or like the logic of why did you not maybe get another position? Like you said, like no number 2 wide receiver unless they're going to focus on that in the draft, I think is probably the explanation for that. Which is fair. There are some decent wide receivers in this class.
Yes,
When you have 2 first round picks to play with as well.
Yeah.
Which, God, it's going to be funny when Justin gets to have the Jets in the mock. Yeah, right. But I think ultimately you did things is fair for them. Now, like, I mean, you mentioned it. Let's go to their co-tenants in this division. Let's start with the second place team in that division from last year, which was the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
Kyle Allen as a backup quarterback. Trent Sherfield on a 1-year deal just because, add a extra warm body in the wide receiver room. But the real warm body that they added there to potentially be their next wide receiver one was DJ Moore. They acquired him and a 5th-round pick in 2026 in exchange for a 2nd-round pick in 2026. They fixed Dawson Knox and Tyler Bass's contracts, so the 2 of them are going to be there for a little extra time. They re-signed Connor McGovern, brought a couple offensive linemen in Austin Corbett and Lloyd Cushenberry. Could those guys potentially start? Maybe are they at least depth? Because I think this season showed you really need some depth on an offensive line, especially in this attrition-filled league.
Sure.
D. Alford, Sam Franklin, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson once again on the move. He's just going to be a mercenary for 1-year deals for the rest of his career.
Basically 1-year deals. That's all it is.
Yep. And the most notable thing, Rick, if I had a dime, if I had a nickel for every former slightly aging Denver Broncos linebacker / defensive end that the Buffalo Bills have signed within this decade, I have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot. But it's weird it's happened twice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was Von Miller many years ago, and now it's good old Bradley Chubb this year on a 3-year deal, $43.5 million, $29 million guaranteed.
Yes.
So ironically, very much like the Von Miller deal, they could get out of it after like 2 years.
Yeah.
What do you make of the Bills' season, right? Or their slew of free agency moves? Like, I like keeping Connor McGovern, right? You need the offensive line there. I do like the other offensive pieces they brought in. Keeping Dawson Knox, I think they have a decent 1-2 punch there. I think the big thing that this hinges on are the thoughts about the Chubb signing and the DJ Moore trade. Do you buy? A lot of people said they overpaid on the DJ Moore move. Do you buy in on that, or do you think it's just the fact that, look, it wasn't the best end for DJ Moore in Chicago, but he was playing well, all things considered, in his tenure there as a whole, and it was just time for him to go because they obviously want younger guys to be there to grow with Caleb Williams. I think those 2 moves are going to decide where we place them in this tier list. What are your thoughts on those 2 moves?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong and remind me. DJ Moore was traded for the number 1 overall pick, right?
Originally from Carolina to Chicago. He was in that trade.
So then basically, essentially, his value has dropped then if he was only traded for a 2nd-round selection this year, right?
Yes.
And Bradley Chubb, if I'm not mistaken, had that catastrophic injury a couple of years ago because Mike McDaniel was a moron and should have been fired then.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed. But he had a decent year last year for all.
He did. My thing with this is that what have we talked about with the Bills? Constantly.
A lot.
The window for Josh Allen is pretty rapidly closing.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know if I think that these signings are going to assist, coupled with the losses that they have. And maybe they'll re-sign some of the guys that are, held out, but keep this in mind too. AJ Epinesa went to the Browns, so he's not there anymore, right? They traded Teron Johnson to the Raiders. Darius Slay, big play or small play Slay, retired. They lost Jordan Poyer, Taylor Rapp, and the secondary. Maybe, they get those back to Javius White. Who knows what's going to happen there? No Ogunjobi, no Milano, no Shaq Thompson. This is a totally new defense.
Yeah.
And on offense, I mean, look, I get the production of Knox and Kincaid, but you need wide receivers that are there, and they didn't re-sign Cooks, Davis, or Samuel. Keon Coleman was a major problem, major bust. And aside from Khalil Shakir, who else is there? When I look at this, I think you're right. It hinges on the Bradley Chubb signing and the DJ Moore trade. I think Joe Brady's first year is going to be a real problem. And to be fair, I think that this is also the general manager's fault and the ownership's fault. So I'm going to say, for me, for my sake, and this is going to be low,
Hmm.
I think, but I'm going to put Buffalo in the PF Changs for life. I do. I think so. Like to me, it just doesn't really jive with what you expect from Buffalo to
Wow.
be. And like Josh Allen and James Cook kind of deserve more and they deserve better. Because, yeah, like I said, McGovern being re-signed is great and all. Doesn't really move the needle for me.
Right, I got you.
None of these move the needle for me.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Like, it's almost if we were doing this in another week from now. Like, are they able to bring back Matt Milano?
Yeah.
Because he is a free agent. Can they maybe swing in and bring back AJ Epinesa just for depth? Because he did originally sign with the Browns, but I saw that thing is being axed right now just because of like a failed physical. Which if I had a nickel for every AFC North team that axed the acquisition of a defensive end for a failed physical this offseason, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot. But how the hell are all these things happening twice?
I mean, it's also a secondary use of the same joke in 5 minutes, and I think based on the laws of comedy, you're now banned from that joke for the rest of the year. So good for you.
Rick, if you had 2 nickels for every time
I made this. Stop! No nickels. No nickels.
All right, if you had 2 dimes for every time I made that.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, it's more money. 20 cents.
There we go.
But
no, 10 cents at a time.
Ooh.
Anyways, I'm impressed we're getting a second team in the PF Chanks for life. I thought that was generally just going to be a one-team thing, but they maybe.
Well, again, I mean, I also feel like it's kind of a good connection there because I'm sure that Josh Allen and Haley Steinfeld will have to scale back their spending because they're going to be with child, and so if you know anything about being with a child, which I know you don't, but I do, your budget does tend to change when the child comes into the picture.
That's
so.
Right. That's
Instead of buying more things for yourself, you end up in the grocery store buying 25 things for the kid in the family and 1 sleeve of Oreos for yourself, and you call it a night. That's how it is. So
that's fair. Look, PF Chang's going to be there a lot of nights for Joe Brady, and may end up getting some PF Chang's to stay because he's going to have to put in some 20-hour work days to try to figure out how they're going to make this thing work in Buffalo.
Dreary Buffalo, yikes!
I was going to try to make the argument for them to maybe be up to like either you did things or did you even try, and I think did you even try is like a fair sentiment for them.
Sure,
because like there's some logic on some of these moves, but it's like. Look, I get it. You're paying the quarterback a lot of money. You have an expensive guy on the defense. I think, like Khalil Shakir, you're paying him a decent chunk of change. Although with what wide receivers are being paid nowadays, maybe it's it looks better.
Christian Kirk.
How you changed the game.
Yes, you did.
But I'm willing to keep him here just for the fun of it.
Yeah, why not?
just for the fun of it. Just the visual of the Pagulas eating PF Chang's going forward, along with Joe Brady, along with Josh Allen, as they try to figure this thing out. So
yeah,
I'm more than fine with that.
I love it.
So let's finish off the AFC East here, Rick.
Yep.
This is a team that they didn't make like volume of moves is not necessarily what they did, but maybe it's more of the quality rather than the quantity of what the New England Patriots did. You mentioned Elijah Vera Tucker. He signed there on a 3-year deal, $42 million, $21 million of it guaranteed. Per the laws of logic in the NFL now, he's going to be miraculously fully healthy for the next 3 seasons.
Sure. Yeah.
And he's going to make the Pro Bowl 2 of the next 3 years with the Patriots, naturally. They brought in Romeo Doubs. They won that sweepstake for him, 4 years, $70 million. Once again, law of logic. He's going to become the number 1 guy there when Green Bay just could never establish anyone as the number 1 guy in their end.
Right.
James Hudson's there. Draymond Jones signed a 3-year deal with them, just a shade under $40 million. KJ Britt signed with them. Kyle they're more like backup guys relatively there. Secondary, they're pretty good. Speaking of secondary, Kevin Byard on a 1-year deal for that team. Look, like I think the quality of some of those moves is pretty good. Like the one with the most risk is the Vera Tucker one, just for his injury history. But like this almost screams the Mekhi Becton thing where, hey, rather than put you in a million spots and try to play you a tackle, what if we just solidify where we're going to play you? And I almost think on the offensive line, they're going to solidify where they're going to play Elijah Vera Tucker. It's like, like whatever. I've said this more about like the defensive guys, right? Like Isaiah Simmons to me is one of the big examples of it. Or like Minka early in his career when he was playing both corner and safety. Like, look, coolly, you could do multiple things, but you risk becoming a jack of all trades, master of none. If you focus Elijah Vera Tucker, hey, you are going to be the left guard, and only barring injury to others, it'll force you.
Right.
You are only going to be the right guard, the right tackle. I feel like he had to play all 5 positions for the Jets at some point, so that's why I'm. Like I think with the Patriots, with what they could do, that it might be the most risk, but I also think it has the potential highest upside if he hits for you and you have a stalwart offensive lineman for 3 years. I think that's the highest risk they took. The rest of the guys they have are mainly depth, and like I think Kevin Byard, he's going to have like the least amount of responsibility in that secondary because they were already so good at that last season. And Draymond Jones is just going to add like I think a defensive line that I think needed just that little bit of support, right? Because I think K'Lavon Chaisson left, so you need to you need to supplement that. I think that was just a smart, intelligent move. They didn't go for home runs. They went for a couple singles and doubles here.
Yeah,
I think that's tidy business. I believe
batting for average.
I think you can. I think there's an argument to say you improved for them because they did make some like small improvements in certain spots. But what do you think?
I think the AVT move is their big home run here because one of the things that you saw towards the end of last season that was really pointed out quite a bit and was one of the reasons why they struggled so mightily in not even just the Super Bowl, but also in like the AFC title game, and the game against Houston, was that their offensive line was young and they were kind of a little overmatched at times because they were starting a rookie left tackle and a rookie left guard. If you slot AVT into that left guard mold, that's immediately a veteran presence to help Will Campbell continue to improve and develop. And I think that really does speak volumes for that. Not a big fan of the James Hudson signing, but again, it's depth. It is what it is. I don't care that you slapped a cowboy in the head. We've all done it at one time or two at a bar. It is what it is.
To be fair, with how often they were on the rant podium for you, I figured that'd be a plus for you.
Well, listen, it is something that I do take into consideration. The Romeo Doubs signing, I do like. If for no other reason than now we get to see what the Patriots concussion cap looks like on him, because that has really good. While I do believe they did improve, I'm leaning towards more you did things, but I'll go more on your side because, like I said, the moves aren't wows, but they're good enough to say that they improved in certain areas where they needed to improve and get better. And I think it all, like I said, it all hinges on the health of AVT. It all hinges on if Romeo Doubs can continue his renaissance and his upward trajectory, which I think he can in this offensive scheme. It's all about just helping Drake May get to year 3 and continue moving forward. So yeah, I think the Patriots did pretty well for themselves. Like I said, the K'Lavon Chaisson one kind of hurts because he did have a great season, but their defense has enough players on it that I think they'll be able to compensate for losing that one piece.
Yeah. I think so too. I think this Patriots team, if there's one probably similarity to the Belichick days from them that like Vrabel's probably like coaching in, is like I think the way they're trying to build themselves and probably the mentality is one guy leaving the team like injury or just like now leaving like won't be there anymore is not going to break them. I think that's the way they're trying to rebuild things here. I think it's a pretty good way to build a team, all things considered. I'm going like my idea with you improved is like you made a couple of select moves that quality wise, I think if they work out can really help you. Like if this is the last good year of Kevin Byard's career and like a guy that Mike Vrabel is familiar with from Tennessee, that's a good thing. If Draymond Jones can really help you out on the defensive line, that was really starting to come into its own at the end of last season. That's a good thing. And AVT, like you said, like having a veteran next to Will Campbell, along with the development he's going to get this offseason, is like the next best thing that could happen to him as well.
Yeah.
So, because Will Campbell was getting a lot of flack for the Super Bowl, and like, granted, like the whole offensive line got demolished in that game.
Yeah,
like I think a rookie left tackle going against what was the best playing defensive line in all of football for like at least half the season, that was bound to happen.
Yeah, no, again, and for me, for my money, when we were talking about the X factors, and I mentioned Will Campbell's name, it wasn't so much about him specifically, even though that's what the point was, but he held his own. It's just a shame that, when you've got two guys swarming at you in that position, you can only block one.
Exactly.
And you got to rely on somebody else to be there to block the other side for you. And if they're not doing their job, or if they're double tuned as well, that's the problem at the end of the day. But I think that Campbell's getting better. I think that he will continue to get better at picking up those blitzes and being able to kind of make the right decision. It's a case where maybe if you know the plays that May's going to roll up to his right instead of to his left, you block the guy nearer so that the guy on the outer edge has a little bit longer of a running lane to get around you, to get to the quarterback. But I think, again, for what it is, he had a really good first season. Only way to go is up from there.
Exactly. And look, we don't know how creative the Patriots could become. Maybe, this is a pretty decent offensive line draft class for all things considered. I've seen multiple guys get what if the Patriots get aggressive on draft day, they bring in a guy and it's like, you know what, Will? Like it's not a demerit against him. Look, this guy will just be a better left tackle than you. Him at left, you at left guard, and AVT on the right side.
Yeah.
Your offensive line gets better twofold then. So
I agree.
It's going to be very interesting to see what the Patriots are going to end up doing going forward. But yeah, right now I'd say you improved. All right, let's move to the next division, Rick. Let's move to the AFC North here. Yep. Let's start with a team that they did stuff this offseason. The Cleveland Browns. Do you want to make the joke?
We're the Cleveland Browns.
There you go. Look, they did a lot of things, and the chief amongst them. They reconstructed this offensive line so much. They traded for Titus Howard from the Texans and then inked him on a 3-year, $63 million extension. They re-signed Tevin Jenkins. They signed Zion Johnson to a 3-year, $49.5 million deal, which, some Chargers fans are happy he's gone. Others probably wish they just had that body there to help protect Justin Herbert.
Oh, yeah.
It's a telltale sign when a fan base is mixed when an offensive lineman leaves.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And then Elton Jenkins, which that's some pretty tidy business actually by Cleveland. I think a lot of teams, if they realized it would have taken just 2 years, $24 million to get him, I think maybe a couple more teams would have been in the scope for him. I know. Go ahead.
$20 million guaranteed,
and that's probably the big part where Cleveland basically guaranteed the entire contract.
That's a Jimmy Haslam contract for sure, straight up.
1,000%. 1,000%.
Yep.
So that's on the offensive side of things. They completely revamped that offensive line for their new coaching staff coming in. And on the defensive side of things, Calais Davis, Quincy Williams was brought in on a 2-year deal. Punter re-signed, kicker brought in Daniel Thomas. Sam Kamara on the defensive line. Julian Okwara was re-signed by them. And then originally they brought in AJ Epinesa. I mentioned earlier in the joke, the failed physical. We don't know what's going to happen there. As of now, I think AJ Epinesa is once again a free agent, so he is free to go wherever he pleases at this point.
Womp, womp.
Womp, womp. So if you're the Brown, again, because they did a good amount of stuff, I don't know if, I don't know. Did you even try as them, or do you think it's just they did things? Because again, it's like, okay, even though we don't know who the hell the starting quarterback's going to be next year. At least they're trying to make it so their quarterback will have some protection in front of them.
Well, it's not only that for me. It's what is your depth behind Quinshon Judkins as your running back one, who is probably coming off of a gruesome injury to end last season.
Right.
And your depth is Dylan Sampson and Raheem Sanders. You didn't even try to add another running back to get into the room to maybe, spell that if Judkins isn't healthy to go for week one. To me, that's a bit of a question mark there. Like you said, getting the offensive line in order is good when you know who your quarterback's going to be. They don't know who their quarterback is going to be.
Yeah.
We do know that it's not going to be Dylan Gabriel, which is a shame because I think Dylan Gabriel deserves better. Their wide receiver room, fine. Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman. They added Tylan Wallace, whoever the hell that is. Not really sure what's going on there. And again, the defense, good signings. Epinesa notwithstanding, Quincy Williams is a big tackle guy, but you do kind of already have that if you're keeping JOK. I think they are keeping JOK, right? Owusu Karamoa. I'm not sure.
I believe so.
I haven't heard anything untoward about him. I mean, you're losing Devin Bush. You may be losing Shelby Harris. Wyatt Teller is gone. Cameron Thomas on the Falcons. It's the Browns at the end of the day. They did things, yet they didn't really try for the things that matter most. So I would put them in did you even try? But if you want to go you did things, I'll lean towards that. I have no qualms with that either.
Well, I was also going to say I want to give them somewhat of a plus because they at least try to help the offensive line.
Sure.
But should we almost just put them in you're not Miami, but is that really saying much?
Well, no, because there are a couple teams in their division that I am going to stomp the claim to add to put them in that.
There you go.
I think the Browns had a better offseason than some of the other teams in their division did.
Hey, that's fair enough. And to be fair, on the JOK part, if he is able to come back because he has not officially retired and they do still have him because he had the neck issue, then it'll only be a positive for a defense that has been pretty good the last couple of years. Like
Sure.
if there's one credence you have to give to that team, it's they can figure out the defense. Now, Jim Schwartz ain't there anymore, so we'll see if that continues.
Exactly.
Well, at least no. Is he still technically contracted by them?
That's a good question. I know. I don't know that Todd Monken's probably looking to bring in his own guy as the DC.
Probably.
But I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to somehow have like a sneaky clause in there where Schwartzy is still their guy on DC. No, he's gone. It's Mike Rutenberg.
Mm.
Where the hell are these finding these people? I don't. Are they just dragging up bodies from Lake Erie and saying, "Hey, be my defensive coordinator"? And they're like, "Yeah, whatever. Okay, it's fine."
No, it might be.
Yeah,
they very much might be.
Quite possible.
All right, let us continue here, and let's bring up. Their logo is right next to them, so let's just continue with them. The team that you need to protect Joe Burrow because he once again dealt with injuries. You kept Orlando Brown Jr. on a 2-year contract extension, which am I allowed to be a little disappointed in his career? I thought he'd be a lot better.
Yes.
I thought he'd be a lot better. Dalton Risner on a 1-year deal. And that was basically it for the offense, aside from bringing back Joe Flacco on a 1-year deal. And Josh Johnson. I'm going to guess he never played for them before because that would be the only reason, which, I mean, to be fair, I hope Josh Johnson is on an active roster for all 32 teams by the end of his career.
Yeah.
That's my goal. But then defensively, here's the thing. Defensively, you brought in Boye Mafe. You brought in Jonathan Allen. Boye Mafe, 3 years, $60 million. That's a little rich for a guy that wasn't necessarily an every down player. Helped Seattle, but wasn't necessarily the definition of an every down guy for them last year.
Yeah.
All things considered.
Yep.
But Jonathan Allen, veteran, has been on part of some pretty solid defensive lines in his career. Might arguably it might be him and Boye Mafe might be the two best guys on the defensive line now, all things considered. After the departures of certain players, and then Jalen Davis, and then they brought in Brian Cook on a 3-year deal.
Yep.
They took him from KC, I believe. So that's pretty good. Starting safety, 2 starting defensive linemen now. Did you even try, Cincy? There's a lot of other stuff they could do there.
Ooh.
Is this the team is this team about to go in You're Not Miami here?
Ooh.
I'm not disagreeing, by the way. I'm just curious. Was this by process of elimination?
No, that really wasn't where I was going with them. I'll be honest with you. I actually kind of liked a good amount of the moves that they made.
Okay.
I think
you could tell me on this, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, look, I do understand that they did lose, obviously one of their 10 poles on defense. But what do we know about the Bengals?
They're cheap.
They don't care about the defense.
That too.
So what they did, was keep kind of the status quo on offense. They re-brought back Joe Flacco as a good buffer in case Burrow gets hurt because, again, you have to play with that notion that Burrow could get hurt again, and you don't really want Jake Browning to be the quarterback again, so it kind of makes sense there. And doing so, you re-up Risner and Brown. They kept the status quo when it comes to the offensive line here.
You got to believe probably because they've made 3 signings on the defensive side, this leads you to believe they're probably going to go offensive line in the draft.
I would assume so. I mean, truthfully, too, the other guys that are on their impending free agent list are Brian Asamoah, Lucas Patrick, and Cameron Sample. It's not really – the Bengals did what they needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I get what you're saying in that did you even try? Because nothing there screams flashy. Boye Mafe and Jonathan Allen are good players. Jonathan Allen had a nice bounce-back season after the injuries in his last year with Washington.
Yep.
He was very good for Minnesota last year. Boye Mafe didn't have the stats, but he was a good presence for them. He
definitely made an impact, for sure.
But, yeah, I mean, I can see your argument for saying, did you even try?
Because where are you leaning for them? Because, again, you can convince me.
No, I think you're right. Did you even try is probably good because – in reality, they kept the status quo on offense. They didn't add any star players of note because they have their wide receivers. They have their running game when it comes to P. Ryan and Chase Brown. And their tight end game, they have their guys. So they didn't really do anything there. And they didn't really do anything else of note. But again, it all comes down to, too, is that the fact that they've paid their offense so much money,
Yep.
They don't have the money to go out and spend for big guys.
Right.
So that's why it's They tried, but their trying was just showing up, and that's really it.
If they had been the ones to get Elton Jenkins there on that 2-year deal, I would be more than willing to bump them up to you improved.
I think so.
Because I do want to be kind. They've gone defensive heavy in some of the last couple drafts.
Yes.
I'm forgetting the name of the kid that they drafted last year that they had the whole issue with.
Shamar Stewart, I believe.
Shamar Stewart, him. Yeah. Miles Murphy, they drafted from Clemson a couple years ago. Like, maybe it's almost a good thing where it's like you're bringing in a couple veterans on the defensive line, and it's like it's not even so much to shelter the young guys. It's like, okay, like Jonathan Allen is mainly there to stop the run, right? Like he can help. He'll get to the quarterback here and there, but he's mainly there to stop the run. It's somewhat similar with Boye Mafe. He could get to the QB a couple times, but I think he's more for the running aspect of it. Now, could either of them have a breakout year? Probably Boye Mafe between the two because he's slightly younger. Yeah, probably. But I'm almost wondering if this is an opportunity for both Shamar Stewart and Miles Murphy and whoever else that they're going to end up getting in this maybe draft. I feel like they're going to use one of their first 3 picks on a defensive lineman. It's just almost an opportunity to be like, hey, you know what? Balls you could go after the quarterback. You could be the next guy to develop on this team. Maybe. And if that's the case, I want to give them a little bit of credit there. But right now, from an optics perspective, it's like, did you even again? I think the Elton Jenkins thing could have been feasible. I think even with the again, I say it as a joke, the salary cap is a social construct. It kind of is though, and really good teams can figure it out.
It is.
Now, to be fair, like we were mentioning with the Bengals before, they're cheap. Maybe they don't have a capologist on the roster, or they have one guy who has 17 different jobs and. Maybe every once in a while the cap stuff will get past him.
He neglected to work that day. Yeah, it makes sense.
To be fair.
Yep.
To be fair. All right. So, Rick, I wonder if this team is going to be the team that ends in that not Miami category, but is that really a bar? The Baltimore Ravens. They kept your favorite quarterback, Tyler Snoop Huntley or Snoop Tyler Huntley, whatever the hell we want to call him.
Good Lord.
On a 2-year, $11 million contract.
Yeah.
There's a backup quarterback deal.
Yep.
They kept Danny Pinter. Cool. They signed John Simpson to be one of their starting guards, I have to imagine.
Okay.
Chidobe Awuzie, Jalen Hawkins. And they did bring in a new defensive end.
Yeah.
For a very brief moment, it was Max Crosby.
Yes.
Until it wasn't. They signed Trey Hendrickson to a 4-year, $112 million contract, $60 million guaranteed. Apparently a maximum value of $120 million. I guess there's some incentives there, I'd imagine, when it comes to sack totals and stuff. Yeah. This team drew the ire of a lot of fans because of what happened with the Max Crosby thing. They traded 2 first-round picks for him. They get cold feet. They claim that the physical thing was an issue, which, to be fair, there's maybe some semblance of a chance that you could pass that off if it wasn't for the fact that how quickly everything turned out. But there it is. All intents and purposes, the reporting is to be believed that the Trey Hendrickson market did not develop the way everyone thought it would, and Baltimore saw the opportunity to get out of the Max Crosby deal, keep their 2 first-round picks, and then sign a guy who was I think it's the difference between the amount of money owed over 3 years versus 4 years, the cap hit, whatever the heck the thing was going to be the case was. Max Crosby is, of course, not a Baltimore Raven, and the Ravens didn't really do a whole heck of a lot because they thought for a week, which is funny, this all happened over the span of 8 to 10 days. They thought they had Max Crosby on the team, which led them to not do much, and they let him go. They signed Trey Hendrickson. They got the one offensive lineman in Simpson, who I think is fine. They also didn't really do much. So that's why I think we're both leaning, Rick, towards the you're not Miami, but is that really saying much category?
I almost want to put them in the Dolphins category, to be honest with you. Because, the grand scheme of what they lost compared to what they have, they're not replacing Tyler Linderbaum with Danny Pinter.
I have that list, by the way. I can pull it up for you in a second.
I have it too. I have it too. They're not replacing Isaiah Likely with Durham Smythe. You're not what you think you're doing, you're not doing. And not only that, have you seen what their roster makeup is currently? Where they have Trey Hendrickson listed? Oh, he's an outside linebacker.
He has never been that.
He is not a linebacker. And I get that they have Matabike and Travis Jones and Aeneas Peebles. They have those guys, but one thing Trey Hendrickson is not is a linebacker. He's not going to drop back into coverage for you. This is a guy who before last season when he had his holdout had back-to-back years of 17.5 sacks each. That's where you need to use him, not as a linebacker. You don't need that sort of thing. The Ravens, the guys that they lost, like I mentioned, Linderbaum and Ricard. Patrick Ricard was the heart and soul of this team.
Yep.
Not even Isaiah Likely. Charlie Kolar, big guy too.
Yep.
Ojabo gone. Jones gone. Gilman gone. Jordan Stout gone.
Keaton Mitchell gone, who was like in spurts was a great backup running back. Which, Derrick Henry, is he going to have a good year this year? Probably. But do you almost have to rest him a little bit more this year because he is just another year older at the end of the day?
Right.
And Keaton Mitchell was like deadly effective in yards per carry when they actually gave him the ball. The problem is that their old head coach never gave him the ball.
And again, it's also a matter too of, I get it. DeAndre Hopkins wasn't really a good enough, guy over there because he was older, and that's all well and good. But after Zay Flowers, who do you have? Rashad Bateman's not a good number 2 option, I think.
They're still betting on Rashad.
Yeah, exactly. It just what is this team? What are they? They lost everything this offseason. I agree. I understand you saying not Miami, but does that really say much? But you know what?
I'm with you.
Throw them in the Dolphins.
I'm with you.
Because it doesn't make any sense what they did, and it's just leading to another way where this team is going to be in trouble this season. And they could make a couple good signings here in the trade. You know what they did too that also puts them down at that, for a long time? They released Cooper Rush. How dare you? How ever-loving dare you?
How dare
release Cooper Rush?
How dare?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, if Cooper Rush wants to stay in the division, there is a team that's still trying to figure out what the heck the quarterback situation is going to be.
That is true.
Smooth transition, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Rico Dowdle signed on a 2-year deal. Pretty good. Shout out to him after his amazing campaign last season. Gets a decent little contract. Kind of sucks that Gainwell had to leave. I thought Gainwell was a pretty good guy overall, but things end up working out both ways. Like he goes somewhere where he can hopefully get a good amount of starts or a good amount of carries, but they get a running back that they are probably going to hope could be somewhat of a bell cow for them, and that's what Dowdle was becoming in the back half of last season. So Rico Dowdle on a nice 2-year deal. They also signed Travis Homer for depth / maybe some returning. Michael Pittman was acquired in a trade from the Colts, along with a 2026 7th-round pick in exchange for a 2026 6th-rounder, and he was given a freshly new 3-year, $59 million contract in Pittsburgh as well, so he's going to be the wide receiver number 2 behind
DK.
Yes, thank you. I'm like, wait, who the heck? DK Metcalf. When DK Metcalf is not punching fans, he's going to be playing football.
Yes.
So that's going to be the case there. A couple guys on the offensive line. Ryan McCollum stays for a year. Jack Driscoll stayed for a year. Cam Hayward stayed on a new 2-year deal with the team that keeps him through 2027. Probably the last contract he's going to sign in his career. So, the idea is that he'll probably end up retiring as a Steeler. Cole Holcomb re-signed, I should say, Sebastian Joseph Day, who I think has always just been like a nice veteran guy there along defensive lines. I remember he was on that Super Bowl Rams team from a couple.
Yes, he was.
Jamal Dean was brought in on a 3-year contract. Asante Samuel Jr., who spent most of last season recovering from injury, is going to be in the fold. And Jaquan Brisker and Darnell Savage are both going to be there as well. So, a good amount of stuff there, a lot to sift through. What do you make of it, Rick? Because it's really, realistically, the biggest names are on the offensive side.
Yeah.
But the bulk of the moves are from the defensive side.
True.
So it kind of evens out for the most part.
True.
What do you think?
And not to mention, they also added a guy who's very familiar with Rico Dowdle, Brock Hoffman. They picked up on a 1-year deal from the Cowboys. And back when Dowdle was having his great year in 2024, he was really pushing the load over there. Now, I understand the point of you're not really sure what they're going to do at quarterback. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
Right.
I think they have time to figure that out as long as they don't go back to Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to say, I think, and again, it's not friend of the show Mike Tomlin anymore. Mike McCarthy is a decent enough guy, to lead this team. Patrick Graham's a very good defensive coordinator. I think the Steelers, the only thing for me that's keeping them away from free agency banner raiser, for me personally, is the Aaron Rodgers thing. If they officially move on from Aaron Rodgers and figure something else out, I'm going to say that they are a banner raiser. But I think a lot of these moves are great. I think that them adding a good let's call it what it is here. If DK is going to be DK, Pittman's a great number one option. I mean, they have Skoranek and A.T. Perry that they just assigned as well, and Roman Wilson who could be good. They have Fryermuth. They have, if they bring back Darnell Washington, I know he broke his arm, but that's a 6'7" monster tight end that they have there. They still, I believe, have Jalen Warren. So now you go from Gainwell and Warren to Dowdle and Warren. Just please use them properly. That's all I'm asking for. And then that secondary got a lot better. I mean, you have Samuel Jr. on one side, Porter Jr. on the other side. You have Brisker and Ramsey. I truly believe this is a very, very good team. And I think these moves are great. I think you have to be excited in Pittsburgh, even though you're not quite sure who your QB1 is, because Pittsburgh's bread and butter has always been about the team. They've had a good quarterback. Trust me, they've had good quarterbacks for a while. Like Roethlisberger was good. Before him, Tommy Maddox was decent enough. Cordell Stewart was a very good quarterback, but they had enough players around them to make you kind of forget about the quarterback in a sense. It was the Brad Johnson 02 Buccaneers in a sense. Yep. And I think what they did was they added enough depth and good players to make this work for them. So I really like what Pittsburgh did.
For all intents and purposes, could they be a team that's bold enough to trade up for a certain quarterback from a certain school? Could happen. Could happen. But while you ponder that,
I was going to say, they have a number one pick. They might not have to. He might fall if it's the guy I'm thinking of. He might fall. You never know.
But no, in all seriousness, I am with you here. Like, they made a lot of good signings. A lot of these guys are going to see the field immediately. They're going to be part of their starters. Rico Dowdle is going to be a good 1-2 punch, I think, with Warren. Like you said, it's just like, please know how to use him, which maybe with Mike McCarthy here, I'll give him credit. He probably does know how to call an offense pretty good. I think he's shown that relative consistently in his career. Yeah. So it's good running backs. Again, Pittman, when DK's on a good day, Pittman as your number 2 is a pretty good thing. We'll forever remember him on the lore of the show from the wheel spins of breakout candidates that one year.
Right.
Still waiting for that breakout. But no, decent offensive line there, still good tight ends, and a defense that like let's not forget, this is still a defense that, if he can hopefully finally have a good, healthy season for the first time in a couple of years, you have TJ Watt there, who's going to handle the bulk of the sack production. Cam Hayward there as the veteran. Benton and Harmon as nice young kids along that front four. They needed to do nothing to the linebackers. You want to know why? Because their linebackers are Malik Harrison, Patrick Queen, and Alex Highsmith. Nick Herbig and Cole Holcomb are depth.
Exactly.
If anything, actually, sometimes those guys will start. So like you just have a great rotation of guys there. Overall, a great front seven. And like you said, like the biggest thing they have to do is improve the secondary, and they very much improved the secondary. Jamal Dean and Jaquan Brisker there. Joey Porter Jr. is great, and Jalen Ramsey is going to continue to just be like a part-time, like possession by possession, mainly going to be nickel, but like overall, he's still doing like. He had an interception last year. He had 3 sacks, funny enough. It's just a career high for him. He doesn't normally do that. Yeah. So, like, overall, good. I'm with you. I think they made a good amount of great moves. And like you said, if there was that, like, medium caliber quarterback available this year, and if they would have also signed that, I think they would have been a free agency banner raiser. Because that would have just put it all together. So we'll see what they do with quarterback.
Keep in mind, too, also that in Mike McCarthy's first year in Green Bay, they were 8-8, second in the North. Mm-hmm. They had Amon Green as like the late stage Amon Green's their running back. The following year, when they went to the NFC title game, they made something out of Ryan Grant. Mm-hmm. You can make something out of these guys that are here, for sure.
100%. 100%. All right. Let us go south in the AFC. To the AFC South. The Houston Texans. They were busy bees, Rick.
They were.
There's going to be a lot of there's going to be a lot of moves, ladies and gentlemen. So, if you slightly fail to keep up, I don't blame you. They traded for David Montgomery from the Detroit Lions. They were able to trade Juice Scruggs, a 2026 4th-round pick, and a 2027 7th-round pick in exchange for Montgomery's services. With how inconsistent the running back room was last year, Pierce didn't take a leap. Joe Mixon wasn't really around the way that we thought he would be. Too much injury concern. You bring in Montgomery there to hopefully even things out. Foster Moreau and Dalton Schultz are going to be in the fold for them with their tight end group. Offensive line is really where they made a bunch of moves. Evan Brown signed on a 1-year deal. Trent Brown was re-signed on a 1-year deal. Ed Ingram was re-signed. Wyatt Teller was brought in. Braden Smith, who I believe coming over from the Colts, was brought in on a 2-year deal, $25 million. That's on the offensive side of things. Defensive side of things, Sheldon Rankin kept in the fold. Daniil Hunter, massive 1-year contract extension with a massive signing bonus as well. So he's going to be locked in the fold for 2 more years for 2026 and 2027 there. But EJ Speed was kept. Reed Blankenship was brought in on a 3-year deal. MJ Stewart there, Kaimi Fairbairn given a 2-year extension, now the new highest paid kicker in the league. I hope that works out better for him than it did for Younghoe Koo last year with Atlanta.
Oh, boy.
And then they acquired Kai Kroger from the New Orleans Saints, a punter in a trade. 2028 picks were dealt there. Bless the fact that 2028 picks are being dealt. they were busy bees. They did a lot. I like the Montgomery signing, or trade, I should say.
Yep.
Because I do think with the injury issues with the running backs last year, I think they needed to bring in a guy where if he could sort of be the lead for a little bit and they figure out what the whole picture of the running back room is going to be, I think that'll only work out well for them. They very much kind of like the Cleveland Browns, ironically, did the Houston Texans, made a bunch of ads on that offensive line. They traded away Deuce Scruggs, which you would think, okay, trading away an offensive line when that's an issue is not great. But at the same time, when the offensive line necessarily wasn't the elite last year.
It was not.
Maybe. And again, Ed Ingram being re-signed, clearly one of the guys that they actually have some faith in, as well as Trent Brown. And then Braden Smith being brought in. I think that's pretty good, nifty business. Colts fans love him. So that's going to be a tough one to lose. And then on the defensive side of things, and Wyatt Teller also brought in as a guard. Pretty good guard, like good NFL starter. And now on the defensive side of things, Daniil Hunter was like your main guy there next to your young franchise piece, right on the defensive side, like two elite guys that could get to the quarterback the last couple of years, right? You'll be able to have a couple depth guys being kept into the fold. The Quan Jones, Rankins, Robinson, EJ Speed being kept in that linebacking core. And then the Reed Blankenship is there. I think really relatively good addition there. Like he had, I think all intents and purposes, he was pretty good in Philly. Philly definitely loved him a good bit, and now he's going to be seeing his talents over to Houston, where he's going to help on that secondary, which for all intents and purposes was actually a pretty good secondary last year, all things considered, right?
Yeah, I think so.
You could say they only get stronger in that instance. I'm willing to say you improved for them because they did make a couple of improvements, but if maybe you're not sold on the offensive line, that's where I could see them maybe just being in you did things. But what is your call?
It's not that I'm not sold on the offensive line, because yes, I'm not, but that's not really what's going to knock me down on this list here. I almost want to go into did you even try? And I'll tell you the number one reason why I go with that realm. They acquired David Montgomery, let's call it what it is here, after a 2-year precipitous decline. 2 years ago was his second 1,000-yard season, was his big-time breakout year. And what did the Lions do the following draft? They added Jahmyr Gibbs, which cut into his ball time. David Montgomery, there were times last year where he barely saw the field, barely touched the football. And now you're going to try and make him the workhorse. When, to be fair, Woody Marks was doing a good enough job of that over there. So I don't necessarily love the idea of Montgomery going to this this team. I don't really like the Dalton Schultz move because he disappeared quite a bit towards the end of the season, and you run him back for $12.5 million on a 1-year deal. To me, that reeks of desperation to keep the continuity for C.J. Stroud in this offense. I do like the Danielle Hunter move to keep him. I do not like that contract. That is a big contract, a $30.7 million signing bonus.
Yeah.
Like, here's what irritates me about that, is that you're basically now going to look to guys like Henry To'oTo'o and Will Anderson and these younger guys and say, and as he's out Shire, and you're going to say, yeah, but Danielle Hunter is our number one guy. He's got $40 million in the banks, basically. He's our guy. Oh, look, good player. Worth the $40 million? Don't necessarily know. the Reed Blankenship signing to me also kind of stings a little bit because I do think that they had a good free safety in Kalen Bullock. They had a really good guy there who's in 2 years has become a dominant free safety. So what are you going to do? Are you going to try and move him to strong safety where you have Jalen Petrie? It just, to me, the Texans offseason this year seem more desperate than anything else because obviously they realized that they are lacking. We're lacking in certain spots. They tried to improve on them, but none of what they did to me is really going to help the CJ Stroud comeback tour,
Right.
if you will. So I think this is a case where quantity doesn't really lead to quality for me. So it's controversial, but I'm in the did you even try camp with them.
Okay. I should make sure they land there. No, I can see it. Like with the Montgomery thing, I think is yes, they made the Jahmyr Gibbs like draft choice there, and I think it just ultimately ended up being for the better of both of them. I think Gibbs needed that first year where it was like Sonic and Knuckles, as they said, which
Sure.
now the breakup. And then now, like this past season, Gibbs of course took off being the main guy. I think for Detroit, the question is like you hope that you have a good second running back behind him now to support him. I think overall, like even if it becomes a similar thing, like Montgomery being traded, like I think it could still work out for them. Whether it be like if it's him and Woody Marks that take over, and that almost becomes like their version to an extent of him and Gibbs, and Woody Marks mainly becomes like the main guy, and it's Montgomery on those goal line third down situations. I could definitely see that being the case. I think that's relatively fine. I don't have any qualms with that. Kind of like you said, the offensive line, I truly didn't even put like too much thought with Dalton Schultz because I'm like, we know the story for him. He's good for like 600 to 800 yards receiving in the regular season. And that's about it. A couple tutties. Like he's nothing special. He's just a good guy. He's a poor man's Pat Fryermuth. He wishes he could be Pat Fryermuth.
But again, my biggest issue is that if you rely on him so much in the regular season, then he disappears when it really matters.
Right.
Because truthfully, he really did. I mean, Foster Moreau and Brevin Jordan, Cade Stover, I think were a little bit more significant than he was, and that's saying something because he's a good player when he has time. But I didn't see it.
But only for a year, so that could be the one of the plus sides of that matter for that. And then Foster Moreau, like you mentioned, being brought in from the Saints from last year, so they'll figure that out. Again, I think offensive line relatively. I mean, you can only go from what last season was to an extent. And I think Ed Ingram, at least they're trusting him, and you bring in Wyatt Teller and Braden Smith. And Danielle Hunter, like I'm to an extent, it's kind of one of those things where it's like it is a lot of money. I don't hate it necessarily because you keep your next best guy to get to the quarterback right next to Will Anderson, and like Will Anderson is the guy there. And it's also a deal which, like timeline wise, like when this Danielle Hunter deal finishes up, maybe is that if he takes a step back, maybe you could keep him for a little bit less in the future on like an extra year or two deal. But it's this contract will be done by the time you have to pay Will Anderson. That's a problem for them ultimately. And I think with Reed Blankenship, I think like relatively like that's been such a good defense the last couple of years. I think they'll be able to figure it out. Like between Petrie and Blankenship, like I don't think this threatens the starting spot for Bullock. If anything, I just think this forces them to really get creative with like some of the secondary looks they're going to throw and like some of the packages, maybe a nickel. Maybe Blankenship or Petrie's going to have to play that spot. Now, to be fair to Petrie, like, should he be reduced to a role like that? Probably not. He has been a pretty good safety, all things considered.
He has been, yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see, like, how the team balances it out. But, like, kind of like you said, like, quantity doesn't always mean quality. And I could kind of see, like, maybe some of the things that you should have more so been focusing on is, like, I don't blame people for being like, are you 100% confident in the offensive line going into this year? And I don't blame people for having their question marks about that, even though I think it's like it's like a slight nudge in the right direction. But I also think wide receiver rise, like Nico Collins was like devastated. Like he dealt with too many knick-knack injuries last year. Yeah. And then as well as that, we don't know what the future of Tank Dell is going to be because of like the horrific injury that he ended up suffering back in 2024. So like, what is he going to look like for you in 2026? I almost wonder if Houston, like, rather than paying $12.5 million to Dalton Schultz, if you should have tried to go for a wide receiver in this market and maybe get a guy on like a 1 or 2 year deal. Like, maybe it's that. So maybe, I see why you could ask the question of, did you even try?
Yeah.
Like, and maybe for them, it takes on the idea. It's like, did you try the right way to an extent? But no, I actually think it's relatively fair to put them in the did
Okay.
you try category. So no, I'm with you there. Now this next team, it's interesting. Let me get all the small signings out the way first, because there's a good amount, right? They brought in Cam Taylor Britt, Jonathan Owens, and Cameron Mitchell, guys like that.
Yep.
They got Colby Wooden in a trade where they got rid of Zaire Franklin, which a lot of Colts fans were happy about, all things considered. Funny to see. Jerry Tillery, Derek Nandi, Michael Clemens. Just so many like depth guys brought in on that defense. A lot of 1-year deals on that defensive side of things. Then Colby Wooden, maybe 1 year left, maybe 2 years left, but like not one of the premier names in this league, obviously, on the defensive side of things. Offensively, Mo Alley Cox stayed with the team forever there. They brought in Nick Westbrook-Akine. They re-signed Laquan Treadwell. I had no idea who was on the team last year, but that shows a lot.
There it was.
That shows a lot.
Yeah.
The two biggest moves that were done by the Indianapolis Colts, ladies and gentlemen, which, fun fact, actually, I'm looking at it, Rick. Laquan Treadwell has been a Colt since 2024.
Hey,
Who would have thought?
how about that?
But the two biggest moves by the Indianapolis Colts, they re-signed Daniel Jones after originally giving him the transition tag. They re-signed him to a 2-year, $88 million contract that could be worth up to $100 million. That has $60 million guaranteed, $50 million of that being in year one. And they re-signed Alec Pierce, wrong name. Alec Pierce to a 4-year, $114 million contract, max value of $116 million. I don't know where the extra $2 million bonus in like random stuff is coming from. And then $84 million in guarantees, $60 million fully guaranteed at signing.
Tell the Pagulas that the table needs to get a little bit larger.
Oh,
Listen,
my goodness.
So here's my thing. I like the contract they gave to Alec Pierce. I do. Because they needed to salvage something after losing Pittman in this offseason. I think that was a significant thing that they needed to do. Do I like that it's a larger contract? Not necessarily, but again, Christian Kirk did reset the mold when it comes to free agency and wide receivers. The reason why I'm not really a big fan of this, and the reason why I kind of have them where they are, is that Daniel Jones contract. As a New York sports fan, as a recovering Jets fan that is not tied to a team currently, bracket to come soon. The one thing that I'm always haunted by is 2017 Ryan Fitzpatrick. Because in 2016, when Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing on a contract, was playing on a show-me deal, the Jets went 10-6. Had they won Week 17, they would be 11-5. They would have made the playoffs. All happy day. Fitzy got his money after that, and you could tell there was something different about the way he was playing because he had his money. It was not a prove-it deal anymore. So when I look for Daniel Jones' contract, 2 years, $88 million, to me, they've hitched their wagon in a way that states the fact that they are done with Anthony Richardson. Basically saying, closing the book on that awful selection that they made. And hoping against hope that a guy with a littered injury history is going to somehow survive the season. And you know what they didn't really do, Jerg? They didn't improve this offensive line that much.
Definitely not.
I mean, listen, Quentin Nelson's one of the best guards. We know that for a fact. But again, this is a team that lost Danny Pinter and Braden Smith to, conference rivals. They have Matt Goncalves and Bernhard Raimann and Blake Freeland, but are they going to add in the draft? Possibly. yeah, I don't really see the reason for it. And again, when your big defensive move was getting Arden Key, aside from the Colby Wooden trade, which I'm not really a big fan of either, to be honest with you, I think Zaire Franklin should have stayed there. They should have kept him because they don't really have a good linebacking core now. They don't. Davis Gaither is the only one that I could potentially see, but I just, to me, it just screams that they are so fearful of the idea of not having a quarterback because they don't want Anthony Richardson back.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with Riley Leonard. They wanted to keep Daniel Jones by hook or by crook. And in doing so, they kind of set themselves back a few years, I think. So for me, open up that table, get me some more pot stickers, and make the Great Wall of Chocolate a larger for everybody else because the Colts are PF Chang's for life.
Yeah, it's not great for them, eh? It's just not great. No, I agree. Like an off season where, like, when you look at the quarterbacks that ended up moving, which is a little bit more than what we thought was going to end up happening, like guys traded for low round picks, guys cut that they were able to get off the market. A guy like I know there's questions about him, but like you're telling me Kirk Cousins just for a year, like Daniel Jones, if he returns from this injury this year, we saw with Kirk Cousins, we saw with Aaron Rodgers, like it takes guys a bit to return from the Achilles. They're not going to be good in the first year back. So like the best case scenario with Daniel Jones is that, yeah, he might come back, but he ain't going to be what he was showing last year. Let's also keep it real. He was starting to trail off at the end of last season. He really was. So you end up paying a massive stack of money for a guy like that. And then here's the thing. I saw a lot, and I know a couple Colts fans at my job, Rick, so this is why I want to ask. I hate saying the word overpaid because at the end of the day, every professional athlete out there, especially the NFL players, get your money. These contracts are not fully guaranteed. Get your money. Do you think they overvalued or had to overvalue Alec Pierce in order to keep him? Because let's be honest, this contract has led to the JSN deal, which we'll cover next time, and the soon-to-be Puka Nacua contract.
Well, bite marks notwithstanding.
Guys' closed room habits, they may or may not impact that.
Well, listen, I think the fact of the matter is that Alec Pierce got 1,000 yards receiving last year while still getting targeted only 84 times and only catching the ball 47 times. So now the thought process is get him the ball more. Right. Because he's going to be the number one option there.
Yeah, because they got rid of Pittman too.
Yeah, Josh Downs is a good receiver, but Josh Downs is not a number one. He's a good slot guy. He's a good speed guy, but he's not your number one receiver. You need somebody with a little bit of length and depth. That's what Pierce is. And again, you're right. This deal leads to the JSN deal, but this deal is also a precedent deal from Christian Kirk, DJ Moore, other receivers that came before Pierce. So I think the Colts had to do what they had to do to keep him around. And then, it was overpaying, but I think that's the goal. That's the name of the game. You're going to be overpaying these guys to keep them going. But again, I also think, too, after Pierce and Downs, Treadwell and Westbrook and Keeney are not really stellar receiving options. They're good depth. Westbrook and Keeney can have some good moments, but I wouldn't put them on my fantasy team.
Yeah, so, I'm with you on that one. It's kind of one of those deals where it's like, again, with a decent wide receiver class and like a couple names are still like Jawan Jennings is still out there, right? Like maybe he could be up in the fold for Indy. They need to get another guy to say that at least.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. And again, maybe this is one of those things where if we, because to be fair, let's reestablish this, ladies and gentlemen. We're doing the AFC in this episode. We're going to do the NFC in the next one.
Yeah.
If one of these AFC teams makes a significant move, we are more than willing to update them next week.
We didn't quite realize the fact that even if it's our first episode back, we can talk for hours on end about football. So we're cutting things in half here, which is good.
Indeed.
You know what it is, Jerk? More content!
Indeed. Well, it makes our life easier. A. Exactly. And then B, let's also be fair. I think we're going to be a little bit quick on these next two teams. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Who'd they bring in? Not a lot. Who'd they lose?
Everybody.
They lost Travis Etienne. They lost Devin Lloyd. They lost Greg Newsome. They lost Andrew Wingard. Wingardium Leviosa. I had to make the joke. Like Chris Rodriguez and DJ Dallas brought in Matt Dickerson. Monteric Brown was re-signed on a 3-year deal. I guess maybe that's why you let Newsome go, because you re-signed him. Do we think this is better than Miami, or do they go in the Dolphins and Friends category? Like, it's tragic, but they lost so much talent.
Come on, knock on your door. We've been waiting for you. We got the Dolphins and the Ravens and the Jaguars, and it's Three's Company too. Yes.
I think just off that, we need to keep it at these three for the rest of the next conclusion.
100%. Look, like you said, they didn't. Again, quantity versus quality here. Did they lose a good amount of players? No. They kept a good amount of players on their team. But it's who you lost.
Yeah.
ETN, massive blow, losing him. De'Ami Brown, decent enough wide receiver, losing him over there. And again, you mentioned it. Devin Lloyd, Greg Newsome, Andrew Wingard, and your replacements there are nobody significant, really. Now, they could also say, but we have Travis Hunter who can play 2 positions, so he's actually fine with that. We're okay with that. But, I mean, at some point, he's not going to be able to play 2 positions. You know that. So, I don't know. To me, it's a problem. Chris Rodriguez is not an RB1 in this league. He's just not. And, that then means that what? You're going to have Baishal Tutin as your number 1 running back? I got a feel for Trevor Lawrence here, too. You just traded away. You just let go his college roommate and his running buddy to New Orleans. And I'm pretty sure he's like, hey, Kellen Moore, can you grab me, please? I want to come over there, too. You don't have a quarterback, right? I want to come over there, too. Like, sorry, Jacksonville, what are you thinking? Pass. Hard pass on them.
Yep. And from a team that lost a lot and didn't really gain a lot to a team that, and maybe they lost a little bit, but they, in terms of volume, this was a high volume team right here. The Tennessee Titans also rebranded themselves in terms of logo this season to like the Houston Oilers days.
Don't like it.
Yeah, you know what? I don't hate the color scheme. I just think it's the fact that you're doing it for like your team's history, but like your team's history, like before. Anyways,
is so fraught with just like problems. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Mitch Trubisky, Julius Chestnut, Wan'Dale Robinson signed on a 4-year, $78 million deal because he is joining Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll. So, yeah, that's the head coach and offensive coordinator duo in Tennessee, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
The baldest coaching staff of all time, also. Daniel Bellinger, Kylan Granson, Austin DeCoulis on a, I think, a 1-year deal. Cordell Volson, 1-year deal. Austin Schlottman on a 2-year deal. Jermaine Johnson, that we mentioned before, was acquired. Jacob Martin was signed in on a 2-year deal. John Franklin Meyer acquired on a 3-year, $63 million deal over from the Broncos. Solomon Thomas was acquired in like a little deal. Cordell Flott, 3-year, $45 million deal. Alante Taylor, 3-year, $60 million deal. Morgan Cox, long snapper, kept in. Tommy Townsend signed on a 1-year deal. Joey Sly kept in for a 1-year deal. And Tony Adams and Joshua Williams as well. Flott, I believe, is the former Giant coming in, so rejoining Daboll there, all things considered. You did things. I think that's the fairest way to describe. By the way, we know this is the old logo. You tier list making people are the ones that make it like this. This ain't
you people.
Exactly.
I almost want to add another tier for them that just says New York of the South. Because, I mean, literally, Robinson, Johnston, Bellinger, Flott, Solomon Thomas was a Jet for a little bit. John Franklin Myers. It's like, you want to just bring everybody in there? Is I don't know.
I was gonna say, Franklin Myers was a Jet too.
Yeah, who else is available for them? Could they bring in Gary Brightwell? Is he still around in the league somewhere?
No, Rick, we know what they need to do. You want to add more weapons for Cam Ward to throw to? You got to trade for old buddy that was Aaron Rodgers' running mate, who's still
Alan Lazard.
Yes.
Oh yes, yeah. So here's my thing. I don't really know what to make of Tennessee. And these moves are an overhaul of their team, which was very bad last year. But this does not, to me, necessarily make this team better substantially. So for me, I'm going to say...
Better than Miami, but that's not saying much.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, you're still the Tennessee Titans. And until proven otherwise, no. No, thank you. So again, I look at this team now with all these signings that are there. I still don't really know if they have a good tight end number one, because Bellinger, I guess, could be the guy, but again, they don't. They basically have two of the same guy at wide receivers in Calvin Ridley and Wan'Dale Robinson, which doesn't, again, you want somebody who's a little bit taller and a little bit more athletic. Actually, they have three guys because they have Chimere Dike as well. So they have three guys 6'1" and under. Like, we're just going to run a slot. We're running arena football plays all game long, basically. They added Julius Chestnut. Great. You still got Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. So it's making that room a little more crowded. And, again, none of these other moves, like Cordell Flott is getting a big contract off of a decent enough year, but was it really a good enough year? Giants fans will probably tell you that they're actually happy that he's gone. They added, it's better than Miami and friends, but it's still the Titans. It ain't saying much to me.
Yeah, I felt there was an argument for you did things, but now that I look at it, it's like, again, it's kind of like with the Texans, right? It's like the quantity is there, and I to be fair, I think this roster was barren last year. Like they needed to add guys.
Yeah.
So to me, now that we have multiple teams in the Dolphins section, I feel like we need to rename the better than Miami section, because do we need to rename that to something, or do we just keep
Southern New York?
There we go.
Yeah, Southern New York. Yeah.
Southern
New York / New Jersey.
New York. Southern NY / NJ. Yes, perfect.
Yes. Yeah, basically.
Perfection.
That's what it is.
Perfection. There you go, Tennessee. See, here's the thing. I don't have the vitriol in my heart with the Titans as much as I used to, mainly because Ryan Tannehill ain't there. I feel like he carried a lot of the vitriol, and also the one Titans fan I knew. I'm willing to give them a chance where they could be sneaky this year. They could maybe get like an extra win or two and surprise you. And I hope Cam Ward does have a good year, all things considered.
Yeah.
So I think, to be fair, they could surprise us with some of the moves they made. I think I think what this is that if they're going to be good again at some point, I think a lot of these guys that they just brought in are helping build the foundation for another good draft class that's going to come in. Maybe they ball out a little more in free agency next year, more so. And then 2027 is more of the year where it's like, okay, maybe the Titans could kind of reascend here.
When they draft Arch Manning because he's a Manning based upon the Mannings of New York. Yes, makes perfect sense to me.
There we go.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the AFC West here. Last division we're going to cover in this one, because we're only covering AFC now. So You'll get a free agency recap tier list show part 2 next week, ladies and gentlemen.
Part 2.
No electric boo. Because of that. All right, Rick, the Denver Broncos. They signed Sam Ehlinger, or re-signed him to on a 1-year deal. He's going to be staying in that quarterback room. You're going to hope that Bo Nix doesn't get a phantom ankle injury next year for whatever reason. That was just bad luck for them.
Oh, come on. Jarrett Stidham was so good. Come on now.
Yeah, right? Hold on. To be fair, if they had Jalen Waddle in that AFC title game, maybe they would have won the game. Speaking of which, Jalen Waddle was added to the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, he was.
J.K. Dobbins was kept on a 2-year deal. I think part of that, from what I saw, is because they kind of struck out with Travis Etienne and one other option, probably the Montgomery sweepstakes.
Yeah.
So they just had to keep. And to be fair, J.K. Dobbins had a pretty respectable year, all things considered.
Yeah.
And they kept Adam Troutman in the fold, and then they re-signed Alex Singleton, and they re-signed Justin Sternard. You had to let a couple guys go. That tends to happen when guys have career years and they can finally cash out. John Franklin Myers cashed out and left, so that happens. But I think all in all, for the Broncos, here's the thing. Broncos fans would have 100% put this team in the did you even try pre-Waddle deal, because it was just them re-signing guys, basically.
Right.
They weren't going to make another move.
Right.
Now the Jalen Waddle deal, I think, to me, the Jalen Waddle deal, what he can do for you, adding that vertical element to your offense, that they were just kind of missing that last year, right? Like let's be real. some of the guys on that offense, like in terms of wide receivers, have not developed the way that we thought they were going to develop, right?
Yeah.
Like this is a team that we've been waiting for like a couple years now for some of these guys next to Cortland Sutton. Can they develop into something? But Troy Franklin, like that connection just hasn't been there. Marvin Mims Jr., I don't know if he's just being typecasted at this point, but he's not really ascended to become a more consistent guy on the offensive end. He statistically regressed last year compared to his 2024 campaign, right?
Yep.
And so I almost wonder, like, not even wonder, I think Jalen Waddle move was a great move for them, all things considered. But one great move does not make up for everything else. So I'm willing to put them in, I don't know, where are you thinking to put them right now? Because can we say you did things if you mainly just did the one thing, but the one thing does kind of help you?
Well, I mean, the only thing that I'm going to say about the one thing that they did that does help them is that it also hurt them because of how much they had to give up to get him.
Right.
This Broncos team, if you look at what they have in the draft this year, they're pretty decimated thanks to that Waddle trade. They don't pick until number 62.
Yep.
And they don't pick again until 108.
Yeah.
And then they have 3 picks in the 7th round, which are just going to be no names.
Yep.
So I do like some of the other moves that they made. Yes, it was re-upping guys, but they also didn't really lose a lot of guys on there. Who did they lose? John Franklin Myers, we talked about him a little bit. Dre Greenlaw, we'll talk about next episode. PJ Locke, same thing. Sam Mustipher, I guess, is a loss, but it is what it is. He might still come back. To me, I look at the things they did, and I look at that more so, and I say, you did stuff. They did improve with Jalen Waddle. They lost a bit based upon the fact that they're not going to be having a lot of picks to make this season when I think they should add a few more pieces. But yeah, I'm going to say they did things. Nice. Simple.
Yeah, simple to the point. And I think for the fact that they did end up adding in for all intents and purposes, maybe at times Jalen Waddle can become the number one in that offense. Could end up working out.
Yeah, possible.
All right. The Kansas City Chiefs, Rick. This is a team to talk about here.
Yeah.
Justin Fields was acquired to be their new backup quarterback. He might have to start a couple of games if the Patrick Mahomes injury takes maybe a couple weeks longer than it was expected, because he did get hurt very late into last season with the ACL.
True.
So there's that. They brought in 2 running backs to help fix the running back room there. Amari DeMarcado was brought in from the Cardinals. Probably won't get too many opportunities to drop the ball at the goal line here, because the Chiefs also signed your Super Bowl MVP on a 3-year, $45 million contract, Kenneth Walker III. So he's now going to be the bell cow back in KC going forward. They re-signed Tyquan Thornton to a 2-year deal. I'm going to guess they're going to go after a receiver in this draft, because I don't necessarily know if that wide receiver room is something I'd have the most amount of confidence in. I mean, James Worthy, I think if he doesn't get destroyed by Travis Kelce on the first play of the season, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll actually have a good year.
Well, it's that, and then also, if Rashee Rice doesn't, find an open road.
I was 100% going to make that joke, and you read my mind there. This is why we work so well together.
Exactly.
They keep Travis Kelce.
Why?
It says on a 3-year deal, he ain't making it to the end of this contract. He's not making it to the end.
And it's not because of injuries. It's because his wife's not going to let him play past the season.
That, and also just like he did not look good last year. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. He did not look good last year.
He did not.
Gentlemen. So I don't know. We'll see. Watch him prove us wrong and have like a 1,400-yard season.
Yeah, seriously.
They brought in Karius Tonga. Is that how you say his name?
Yes. Yeah.
Karius on a 3-year contract. Jack Cochran was brought in. Kader Kuhu. I like the name. And then we mentioned they lost one of their safeties in free agency to the Bengals. Well, they re-upped and they brought in a safety, Aloy Gilman, on a 3-year deal for themselves. So it's kind of the story of they lost both their corners, ironically enough, both of them, funny enough, going to the Rams for all intents and purposes. Right?
How about that?
And we'll get to the Rams next episode. That team made deal. Both Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson left Kansas City. They went to the Rams. So they lose both their starting corners. Though, to be fair, this is not going to be the first time that the Chiefs are going to kind of like fix the secondary since Mahomes has been there. It's almost going to be the third time they did that, because it's when he first got there, then they made the big moves, right? You get Tyrann Mathieu. You had Marcus Peters there in the early years, but then you kind of let him go, right? Then Tyrann Mathieu goes. You bring in Justin Reed. Again, there's a Houston Texans secondary player is going to be a Kansas City Chief in the next year or two because that's just where they get their safeties from.
Sure.
Just wait until Stingley becomes a Chief. Anyways, so they lost a good amount of stuff. They made a couple smart moves, right? For all intents and purposes, like I do kind of like Tonga being there. Gilman is a solid replacement for the safety. Again, like if you think the safety play is not going to drop off and you're paying $16 million less over a 3-year span, I don't necessarily disagree with that. And then offensively, I mean, look, we know the number one issue offensively last year, aside from Jawan Taylor getting penalized every single play, it felt like, was the fact that you just didn't have a rushing attack. And it finally caught up to you, the fact that you didn't have that. So what do? You go and you get not just a good backup running back in DeMarcado, you get a good starting running back in Kenneth Walker III. So, like, it's the mix of the few moves they made were actually good, but also you kind of let a lot go. But again, this is just based off of free agency. Again, maybe something happens in the next week that makes us, like, put them a step back up. At the same time, though, this probably feels like a team that's really going to need to hit on some draft picks this year. So what do you make of the Chiefs? Like, I don't know if they belong in Did You Even Try? Because I feel like they did. They were just very cerebral with what they chose to do.
Yeah, but...
Do we need to rename the Southern New York and New Jersey thing again? Or are they going to go with the Titans?
No.
Is that where you're going to put them?
No.
Are you about to compliment them? Is that why you're sighing?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not. Look, if it was just... I'll put it to you like this. If their moves were strictly adding DeMarcado and Kenneth Walker and nothing else, I would say this was a great free agency class for them. Because you're right. What they needed to do was they needed to get better in the rushing attack, and they did just that. But... the rest of the moves that they made, Alohi Gilman aside, I'm very questionable about a lot of them. To the point where I kind of want to throw them on the buffet line at PF Chang's. Look, here's my thing. Like you said, Travis Kelce... Yeah.
Real quick, for the people that have context of why we keep making this joke, is because Mark Davis, who eventually we're going to put the Raiders in here, like this tier in the list was made for them. They just suddenly have 3 teams joining them.
Listen, PF Chang's should give a lot of teams over there, man. It's a big buffet spot. You never know.
At this point, they should sponsor us.
I agree. Hey, I'll make it happen. Great Wall of Chocolate for everybody. The Travis Kelce thing, like, that's a waste of money. And they have no good backup tight end. Noah Gray is not a good backup tight end for them. They lost Robert Tonyan in free agency. Your quarterback, if Mahomes isn't ready to go, fine. But, they ended the year with Chris Olajuwon because Gardner Minshew got hurt. And so what do they do to replace that? They add Justin Fields, who was not only run out of Chicago, he was run out of New York after barely a full season. And Pittsburgh. May I remind you of something? In New York and in Pittsburgh, he was a winning quarterback. He wasn't a flashy quarterback. He wasn't a high volume quarterback, but they won games. I mean, New York, not so much, but, Pittsburgh, they won games. And in New York, he wasn't bad. It was just Aaron Glenn's a terrible head coach. We know this for a fact. Tyquan Thornton doesn't excite me. And if you have to start Justin Fields, he's not going to be able to throw the ball to Rashee Rice. He's not going to be able to throw the ball to, whatever tight end they signed other than Gray and Kelce. It, to me, just seems a little haphazard in a way because it just kind of feels like you just are throwing names at a dartboard and trying to figure out what works. And unfortunately, that's kind of the way that the Chiefs are right now. They're just throwing names at a dartboard, seeing what works, and trying to move guys around properly. Because you're right. It wasn't just the fact of Jawan Taylor false starting every play, basically. But that offensive line, other than that, wasn't very good. Creed Humphrey didn't have his best season. Wanye Morris was hit or miss. Sumateo was a rookie. Maybe he'll get better this year, but as a left guard, And then Trey Smith was not. They weren't potent. They weren't the Chiefs. Right. And it's only a matter of time before guys like Chris Jones and George Karlaftis leave. It's a real. The reason why I say the Chiefs can be in that PF Chang's for life is because when you go to a restaurant like that and you see the older guys that are there, you know what they're doing? You know what they're doing at the restaurant? They're reliving their glory days. And that's exactly what the Chiefs are going to be doing. They're going to be telling these tales to Josh Allen and Daniel Jones and these guys who are just going to get annoyed because we've heard the same stories over and over again. And it's like, do you remember when we beat you in this game? Yes, Patrick, we remember when you beat us. Yes, we remember it. So it's just, again, nothing that they did screams good aside from the running back room, but that's a small margin compared to the rest of the movements that they made. And the moves that they made, other than that, were just not spectacular. They tried, but no.
They are banking on a really good draft class, and B, a Steve Spagnuolo defensive masterclass this year.
And they have the number 9 draft pick this year. When was the last time we saw them have a top 10 pick?
It's been a while.
So yeah, they got a lot to focus on and worry about here.
Because never forget when they drafted Mahomes, they traded up for that pick. That wasn't their original pick.
Correct.
They traded up for that one.
Correct.
For all intents and purposes. But PF Chang's enjoy the buffet there, Kansas City.
Yeah.
No Andy Reid will, at least, and developing dad bod god Pat Mahomes. By the way, real quick, just on the thing with the Travis Kelce contract, because some people might bring it up. It's technically only a 1-year deal, $12 million, but there's built-in dead cap years where things go right. They could negotiate it to make it the full 3 years. Once again, salary cap is a social contract, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Just in case the people are going to yell at us about that. It's technically only a 1-year deal, but there's 2 years built in there for them to play around with.
I guarantee you that there's going to be an audible where he's going to yell at Ophelia, and everyone's going to try and figure out what the heck that means.
Horatio!
Exactly.
Anyways, the Las Vegas Raiders, let's just put them in the PF Chang's line real quick while I list out the moves.
Really?
I thought that's why you made this for them.
That is why I made the joke, but
okay, hold on.
Go ahead. List them. Go ahead. List them.
Okay, hold on. Temporarily, they're
there. Well, they're there because they're the host of the party right now, so that makes sense.
Indeed. Okay, let's go through the actual moves. Connor Hayward signed on a 2-year deal, so that's Cam Hayward's younger brother. They signed Jalen Naylor on a 3-year deal, $35 million. I actually think that could work out for them. He was kind of an understudy in Minnesota for a couple of years. Yep. Spencer Burford brought in. Tyler Linderbaum brought in on a 3-year, $81 million contract. More thoughts on that in a moment. Thomas Booker, Malcolm Collins. Anyways, this is where they really started to make the additions here. Secondary-wise, Eric Stokes brought in on a 3-year, $30 million contract. Speedy Quarter from Green Bay. Teron Johnson, who was about to be cut by the Buffalo Bills as a cap casualty, was acquired at the 11th hour. It was Johnson and a 7th from Buffalo in exchange for just a 6th-round pick all in this year's draft. The linebacking core got a facelift in this one. Nakobe Dean on a 3-year, $36 million contract, getting him from Philly, and also on a 3-year, $40.5 million contract, Quay Walker. How his agent was able to negotiate that, I have no idea. And then Kwity Paye brought in on a $16 million per year deal. I want to say it was a 3-year deal. I don't know why it doesn't have the years here on NFL.com, mind you. And yeah, that was the move. So they made a bunch of moves on the defensive side, a good amount of move on the offensive side. And of course, as we know, there was the Max Crosby deal that they originally made that ended up falling through. So technically he's still on the roster right now. The reports can say all they want about him being willing to play. They're going to trade him at some point. It's probably not going to be pre-draft now at this point. They're probably just going to have to rely on a post-draft move. Or maybe we get surprised and they end up trading him, but who knows? All intents and purposes, those are the moves made. So originally the meme was PF Chang's there, the host of it. But Rick, it sounds like from you, and I'm not disagreeing. I did it for the shtick, but where are we putting the Raiders on this one? Are they improved? Do you think they're great moves?
Tick, 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 ding, 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 ding. Okay, so this is a bit of a stretch here for me, but this is why I'm saying it. Right now, obviously, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen with Max Crosby, but right now he's still a Raider.
I will be surprised if he's still a Raider come
July. Agreed. But right now, as it stands, he is still a Raider.
Yep.
So that defensive front now includes Crosby,
Yep.
Kwity Paye, Tyree Wilson, who can probably have a good bounce back year this year, Tonka Hemingway, best name in the league, by the way.
Facts.
Broderick Martin, who I think is a pretty good tackle. So they've got a good defensive front. Linebacking core, Tommy Eichenberg's a solid tackler, one of the better tacklers, even though Miles Stats one of the better tacklers. You add Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean to that team. And then secondary, Stokes, phenomenal. Johnson, really good move. Jeremy Chin should have a good bounce back year, I think, for this team as a safety. On the offensive side of the ball, you know who you're drafting number one. We know this, right? It's going to be Fernando Mendoza, quarterback from Indiana.
Yep.
So what do? Knowing who you're going to draft, you bring in one of the best young centers in the game in Tyler Linderbaum.
Arguably the best.
Arguably the best. Not to mention, you bring in a good guard depth in Spencer Burford when you have JPJ, who was one of the best young centers coming out of college that has moved to right guard and has become a solid right guard for them. So you have that in there, along with your other offensive linemen that are there. You add Connor Hayward as a stopgap option who can be a good pass catcher out of the backfield because you know that Ashton Jeanty is going to have a monster second season. You bring in a couple decent options in wide receivers. Obviously, Jalen Naylor's the big guy there, but you have Trey Tucker still, who proved himself last year to be a pretty formidable option. Brendan Rice, Jerry's kid, should have a better year this year. Brock Bowers is going to be back. They have Bowers and Mayer as a 1-2 option. The best thing that the Raiders did was build up that roster enough so that when Mendoza comes in, he's got a full cupboard of talent to work with.
Yep.
And again, the biggest thing they did was adding Tyler Linderbaum.
Yeah.
Because not only was it the fact that the deal with the Ravens fell through, but then you fleeced the center from the Ravens at the end of it all. That is taking the pie and also the frying pan as well. And leave with both of those things. I think the Raiders did a great job here. I think this really is going to help. And again, one of the other unsung things, and we don't talk about this enough when it comes to free agency, but you got to talk about the coaching.
Yes.
Having a mind like Clint Kubiak that's going to be there to make that really special for this team, and also a good assistant head coach of Mike McCoy, who's worked with the younger quarterbacks in the past. It sings. The Raiders, I think, won the AFC portion of the free agency. Now they're going to win a lot of games this next year. Probably not. Doesn't matter because when you win the offseason, I think you're in a much better shape.
Yeah, no, I put them in the PF Chang's tier mainly for the meme because Mark Davis and PF Chang's forever.
Oh, for sure.
But you know what? They set up the venue. They hosted it for the other AFC teams so far and the NFC teams that we're going to add next week because I'd be shocked if we don't add at least two.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, like just going in, Connor Hayward, like he's going to be that fullback, running back-ish, like kind of just a power guy. He'll step in here and there, but we know Ashton Jeanty next year with an offense not ran by Chip Kelly, which is already automatically a positive. For all intents and purposes, Ashton Jeanty should have a 1,000-yard rushing season in year 2. Health was a big factor for why they struggled a lot last season, right?
Yeah.
Like Colton Miller should be 100% healthy. Jackson Power Johnson should be healthy and not dealing with nagging stuff. Brock Bowers should not be dealing with injury issues for all things considered. This team, you know, again, there's just a lot of like young guys on the offensive skill position group. And now you add a Jalen Naylor who has like a decent little chance for himself to kind of break out, be that extreme vertical threat when you can just have Trey Tucker focus on being like the main guy to work on all aspects of the field for him and for the team. Like wide receiver is probably the main portion of this team that could use some improvement on, but that's what you have your second, third, and fourth round picks for. Maybe you find like one of these later round receivers. And of course, there's still a trade to be made out there potentially for an AJ Brown. That's very much still in the cards. Max Crosby, like you could make the trade for AJ Brown and then subsequently trade Max Crosby away. So your draft capital will kind of ultimately like be staggered. Worst case scenario there.
Right.
But there's a lot you can do. But no, I'm with you. And like this is the big thing. Burford decent, but you get the best center on the market this year. All pro caliber interior offensive linemen don't hit free agency after their rookie contract ends. That does not happen. So the fact that you now get this guy, he's going to be glued to the hip, literally, with Fernando Mendoza for the next 3 seasons. This is massive. I don't care if it was an overvaluation of the market. This is the kind of player that resets the market for a position like center.
Mm-hmm.
Also, with the salary cap going up.
Right.
Come on, people. These billionaires can afford it. All intents and purposes, I think it's great. And like you know, kind of like how we were going a little bit back and forth of like Tennessee added a lot of guys and they did add them to positions they needed. And the Raiders kind of did the same thing, but there's a little more cachet to some of the names that they added.
Agreed.
Kwity Paye has shown really good flashes, and he's played next to good defensive linemen, right?
Yep.
Nakobe Dean has been on a Super Bowl team. Quay Walker has been on a team that's made the postseason multiple times. He's played next to other really good defensive players. You're bringing in some really good pieces here. I made the joke at the start, but no, I think legitimately, I think the Raiders in the AFC side of things, because I sure as heck know this last team ain't going to surpass them. I think the Raiders were the best in terms of setting up for a first overall pick. It doesn't happen as often as you think it does, where a team, knowing they're going to make the quarterback first overall pick, is actually prepping properly for it. That doesn't really happen all that often.
Look at the Titans last year. The Titans knew they were going to take Cam Ward at number 1 for quarterback.
And they deconstructed it.
Exactly. And they went the opposite way. One thing that I am going to say, too, I know that there are a couple of guys that are still out there on the market, but I could see them potentially being players for like a Debo.
Yeah.
You add Debo Samuel into that room, you give another option there. I mean, he's still got some life in those legs. I know Jawan Jennings is the big name still left in, but you bring in maybe you know what? Maybe even Stephon Diggs. You bring in a guy like Diggs to be like a veteran presence there in Vegas. Things can happen that way. So there's still room for them to go, but I think what they've done so far is fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. This team made a lot of good moves for themselves, and like shout out to them. They really improved this offseason. All right. Last team that we're going to go over on this episode, ladies and gentlemen, in the return edition for the season. The Los Angeles Chargers. I mentioned Keaton Mitchell going somewhere before, Rick. And this is where he went. He went to the LA Chargers. So you got to imagine if Omari and Hampton is going to be back and ready and 100% next season, it's going to be Omari and Hampton and Keaton Mitchell kind of being that 1-2 punch for the most part.
Correct.
Charlie Kohler was brought in on a 3-year deal. $24 million. We know that he's mainly going to be there, like not so much of a receiving threat. He'll be good for the odd, like, good catch here and there, but he's really, those like 6 personnel, 7 personnel formations where he can help be that second guy. He could be that extra guy to help block with the offensive line. Like that's going to be his predominant role of what he'll serve. And again, like he's one of the guys that left the Ravens, which is why we ding them. He's going to not John Harbaugh, but his brother. And I'm sure Jim Harbaugh knows what some of these former Ravens players have the capabilities of being able to do potentially here, especially with McDaniel there being the guy. Offensive line is where a lot of people had the most critique for the Chargers in the offseason. Like, again, this is another team that maybe could have gone for an Elton Jenkins kind of guy, right? Or even the flurry of moves that the likes of the Browns and the Texans made on the offensive line of things.
But Jerg, they did make a move.
They re-signed Trevor Penning.
Yes.
They got Coyote Owasika. They got Tyler Biadasz, a 3-year deal, the most expensive guy. They got Trey Ripkins. But the name that we've all been waiting for, Rick's beloved Cole Strange. 2 years, $13 million.
Yes.
And then on the defensive side of things, they kept Khalil Mack. I didn't think he was actually going to stay, but that happened. Dalvin Tomlinson in LA for a year. Dean Leonard. Denzel Perryman, the prodigal son, continues to stay there. Deshaun Phillips and Tony Jefferson and long snapper Josh Harris. In certain instances, I think they really did do a good job. Like, I like Keaton Mitchell there, right? I think him and Hampton is going to work really well. Where this leaves Najee Harris is probably the question. Is there almost too much talent there for them to have? Or actually, no, I think he's even a free agent, so I don't think
he is. Well, because remember, they also have Kamani Vidal still on their roster and Jared Patterson as well. Right. It was Harris and Haskins that were your odd man out.
Right. Really, so we know Jim Harbaugh loves himself options when it comes to the running back room. You kind of didn't really need to do a whole lot to the offense. Like, I think this team, in terms of skill position players, let me clarify.
Yeah.
They like Ladd McConkey. They probably think last year was a really good showing for Quentin Johnston. And look, this is a prove-it deal for him. 8 touchdowns last year, which was tied a career high. 735 yards, which was just barely a career high. They're hoping that they could get a 1,000-yard receiving season out of him. And they also do have Trey Harris, who they brought in, rookie second-round pick from last year, hoping for a big second-year jump. And then Oronde Gadsden, who I think they're probably all in on being like the main receiving threat for tight end, which, to be fair, he had a really good season.
It did.
For them. And so him and Kohler are going to be your top guys. It's just a matter of, like, truth be told, I mentioned all the offensive linemen and like, oh, these guys are hurt. If Joe Alton, Rashawn Slater could, for the love of God, stay healthy, this is a really good offensive line. The problem is just they kept getting hurt last year, and that's the big thing. So I actually think offensively they're fine. I think defensively, getting Dalvin Tomlinson, Khalil Mack, the ageless wonder, stays for one more year. You still have Derwin James there. It's Dante Jackson as one of your lead corners. Is this a case like Tuipulotu is like that? He was amazing last year. He had a career high in sacks, 13. So like he's probably going to be the lead guy in terms of like creating pressure. Like, are you confident in the rest of that team? Where do you add? So like the Chargers, they tried. I don't think they should be in the bottom half of this tier list. I think they should be somewhere in the top half. Okay. I don't know if I would put them in great moves, but I'd be willing to hear an argument if you'd want to argue for that.
No, I'm not going to argue that.
So I think it's between you did things and you improved, which I think in certain aspects they improved. So what do you think?
See, my thing is that they really truly only added one guy on defense, and that was Dalvin Tomlinson. Everybody was just a re-sign.
Right.
Everyone was just running back from last year when they, correct me if I'm wrong, they were the 5 seed last year?
Yes.
Okay, so then they lost to Houston in the first round, right? Or was it Houston or was it somebody else?
Hold on. I can pull up the standings just to confirm it. If standings would actually. So they were the 7th seed last year, so they lost to the Patriots.
Oh, they were the 7th seed. Okay.
The Texans was the year before. Don't worry.
Got it. Yes. Well, that's what I'm saying is that so essentially from what I'm seeing is that they're running back with the similar staff that got to the 7th seed that had them just make the playoffs last year. I mean, yeah, they signed Keaton Mitchell, fine. They signed Alec Ingold, sure. Charlie Kohler, okay. They needed to sign Tyler Biadasz or have a good center option because Bradley Bozeman retired. That was a big blow for them. So filling in that role was important. But a lot of their stuff is just kind of like rehashing what it is. It doesn't really strike me as like major moves. So I would probably put them more in the you did things camp.
That's fair.
Because, again, they signed guys, they re-signed guys, but nothing that's there speaks to me in a way that, like I said, if you go through those top 3 teams that we have, you can point to one specific signing from those top 3 teams where I would say that's better than what the Chargers offered you. Raiders, Linderbaum. No question in my mind, easy. Steelers, Pittman. To me, no question, nice and easy for that. And then the Patriots, I like the AVT signing a lot. For them, and I mean, I think also the Romeo Doubs signing, I think was really good for them too.
Yeah, I even think Jamal Dean for the Steelers as well. Like to mention another guy like that. That's a guy that slots in as one of your top 2 corners, which I 100%. Like. I think if you're LA, you could have probably used a guy like that. All things
100%. But to the point that you're saying, yeah, I agree. I don't think the Chargers belong in the bottom 4 tier. I think that Jim Harbaugh doesn't get an invite to PF Chang's for starters.
I think he would cause a ruckus.
Oh, he would. But, I mean, I would say that they did try a few things. They did add some pieces, and they did re-sign some guys, but nothing moves the needle, really. And, again, this is all I'm really going to say. Justin Herbert's backup quarterbacks are Trey Lance and DJ Uiagalelei. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, really got to hope that he stays healthy.
Yeah, I think.
That is a 3-win team if he gets hurt, dude.
Ooh.
It's so bad.
It's bad. Bad. It's very bad.
Oh, lovely. Lovely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that completes the AFC side of things. Take a good look at this. We'll bring this back up next week, and we will fill it in with the NFC side. But the top 3 teams to us from the AFC side of things, and I think this is relative consensus here, the Las Vegas Raiders are raising the banner for free, which I think is actually a fair thing to do. I think one of each from the AFC and the NFC, I think is relatively fair.
Sure.
It'll take a special offseason for us to want to put a third extra team up there.
I agree with that.
But there's that. The Steelers made some great moves. The Patriots did improve, all things considered. You did things for these four. I could see some people trying to make an argument for one of them maybe getting a bump up. Probably the Broncos, if anyone, all things considered.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Did you even try Cincy and Houston, your poor franchise quarterbacks? Poor guys. PF Chang's customers for life. They're telling stories about the good old days while taking back shots and eating Kung Pao chicken right now.
Exactly.
The Tennessee Titans, aka Southern New York, New Jersey, because God, you worked off a lot of aspects of both those teams.
Exactly.
And then the Dolphins and friends. Jacksonville, I feel so bad for them, but it's just you lost too much.
You lost too much and you didn't do anything.
Exactly.
You know? It's that simple.
Exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, that all in all completes the first half of the NFL Free Agency Recap Tier List show. And that completes our return episode for this season of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this week's edition of the show, the return edition. Yes, we have come out of our hibernation / sabbatical / whatever joke you want to call it. Yeah, we kind of needed the time off, to be fair. But it's perfect. So much to recap. So much that we're splitting into 2 parts. So we will be back next week with another edition of the show. We will go over the NFC side of things a little bit more detail. We will quickly re-overview the AFC side of things in case other additions get made, in case guys go to certain spots. And we'll also let Justin give his 2 cents on everything. See if he agrees with what we have overall, or if there's anything he feels strongly about on the tier list.
He won't agree with that with the Jets thing, obviously.
Oh, definitely not. Now, here's the thing. Is it going to be positive or negative is the question.
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's the thing. So there's your hook, ladies and gentlemen. Will you see an optimistic or a depressed Jets fan next week? Stay tuned for that, ladies and gents. But in all seriousness, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the show. If you joined us live and watched, we did see a couple viewers here and there in the live show. And if you're going to be watching us back, we appreciate it all the same. This is the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. We enjoy all the fun, football, and chaos on a weekly basis and love to talk to and for you all. So, ladies and gents, we'll see you all next time. Thank you, and bye-bye.